Greetings, hello, welcome everyone, welcome to DevChatter. My name is Brendan, and on this, our 200th episode of the stream, we're going to do a little bit of coding. So I hope you're all here for some fun. We're going to do a little bit of discussion, things like that. I just noticed that I didn't put a thing in the box there saying what we're doing, so I'm going to do that while I'm talking to all of you. So, welcome, hello, both Codebase Alpha and S&B are here. What are the odds? Icy Black Deep, greetings. And Lynx Lumps, hey, greetings, welcome. Give me 1 second while I update that, and we're going to go ahead and get started here on the stream. I just want to put some kind of a project header in there so people know what it is we're doing today. Let's say 200th episode of DevChatter. Answering questions and demystifying concepts. And let's go ahead and make that visible and see how that works reasonably. I'm going to make that font a little bit bigger. How's that? There we go. Perfect. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. And the Michael Jolly coming in with a resub. That is your 6-month resub, Michael Jolly. You've got a little, look, you're fully hatched. You're a little adolescent Chatosaurus now. Woohoo! Yes, you got a new dino. Hey, Katrina, welcome. Hey, the Michael Jolly, woohoo. You missed the huge prize giveaway bit? Oh, yeah, no, sadly, S&B, I did not pull huge prizes for this stream. Though... And S&B with the 11-month resub. That is quite awesome. 11 months, so you are an adolescent Chatosaurus with a little grabber, and you are about to be a smiling Chatosaurus here in 1 month. Assuming that you, maintain the sub till then, but that's awesome. Hello world, the bot, the bot restarted? I restarted the bot? Did I restart the bot? I don't know, I guess. Well, let's click some buttons for the bot then, just so it has something to do. I will toss a link to our Discord in the chat over there. They did, S&B, that is correct. Chattosauruses have fantastic dental plans. It's important, because they need to be able to speak. They are Chattosauruses, after all. Okay, so I tossed a link to our Discord in the chat there for anyone that is interested. If you haven't joined our Discord, you should. It's a good place to just discuss with us and things like that. Great way to stay in communication with me and the other people here in the stream. I will also link to our GitHub, which is where most of the code we do on the stream is located. And I will link to our YouTube and our Twitter for anyone that wants to get updates or see past episodes. Okay, so what are we doing today? That is a good question. I want to start off by doing something that is fun and interesting, and that you should never do at home or, well, I guess you can do it at home. Don't do it in your existing project. We're going to start off with one of my favorite things to demystify for people, which you might already be familiar with, but I have a feeling you've never done this before. Okay, so... a little bit of background. Trying to think of the years. 2011, 2012, around that time period, we started doing a... Rising Phoenix coming in with a 10-month resub. Thank you very much. That is awesome. See, that's another one with the an adolescent Chatosaurus with a grabber in there. Yes, hype in the chat indeed. Hang on. Let me... give a quick reset so we can get that. Hopefully that refresh will do it. There we go. Yeah. I agree, Rising Phoenix. It is a fantastic little animation there to run. Hype in the chat. That's 3 resubs already. You all are awesome. Okay, so the backstory. So many years ago, I'm thinking it was like 2011 or so, some of us started doing an event, a free workshop here in our area. We did Software Engineering 101 Cleveland is what we called it. And we set up these workshops where we were going to teach people like software engineering, so programmers, teach them like some of the more advanced concepts. We called it 101 because we're going to take it from an easy stance. So it's like how to get your, how to get started is kind of the idea. So begin thinking about these concepts, because while some of them are hard to understand and they are, certainly, more advanced concepts, you can program without knowing them. But we wanted to take them from an easy approach. So we called it Software Engineering 101. One of the concepts that we were teaching was inversion of control. So IOC containers, dependency injection, those sorts of things. We of course taught solid. But one of the things that even when you teach someone solid and you explain dependency injection and they sort of get the concept of, hey, this goes backwards, inevitably you always get the idea that, like many people in the class, will always essentially say, hey, that IOC container basically is like magic. So, today on stream, we are going to demystify the IOC container by writing one. Yeah. This is also why I started off the stream by saying, don't do this at home. And by at home, I mean, you can do it at home, actually, but don't do it for any real project. And I will explain why. Many of you have probably seen on my stream, I always start off with what's called pure dependency injection. So pure DI. And this concept works kind of like this. So I'm going to show you really quickly pure DI. And here's the way we're going to do it. We're going to say public class 1 and class 2. Now, don't really worry about these because they don't really matter. But if class 1 requires class 2 in order to work, I might set it up like this and say, hey, I've got class 1, class 2. It comes in through the constructor. So then when I'm creating class 1, I need to add a dependency. Add a reference to the class library. And then I'm going to say var foo equals new class 1, which is going to take in a class 2. Okay, so this is essentially, I'm wiring up my dependencies at the beginning. I get so much control because I am literally just creating them. Now, the idea is that I create them this way here, and say in a test environment or in another circumstance, I can create them differently. And I just have to change how they're built. And to be honest, if you're building something simple, like say you're working in an actual microservices project, and you really have like, hey, this is a piece that kind of does its own thing over here, but it's small, and it's, related to these other pieces, but none of them are really depending on each other. They work alongside each other. That's microservices, and in the way it works, very, very broadly speaking, of course. But the idea is a lot of times you'll have something that's small, and you don't really need an IOC container. In those circumstances, do this. Like literally just create it at some entry point. You essentially find, here's the root where I'm going to configure things, and most people will call that the configuration root. Okay, build it like this and just do that, because to be honest, you don't need the flexibility of an IOC container most of the time. Now, obviously, if you're building something like a web application, there is an IOC container built into ASP.NET Core and many other web frameworks. You can use those ones. What we're doing today is not building an IOC container that we expect to use. We are building one so that you can see kind of what it's doing underneath the surface, so that it sort of makes sense, like what it's doing. Now, I will point out that any IOC container that you go and get to do this job is going to be far more advanced than what we're going to build today. It's going to have lots of extra configuration. It's going to be able to handle things that ours is not going to be able to handle. We're just doing this so you can understand the simple case and know what's going on. So let's take a look. So step 1, get rid of this code that I just did. We don't need that. We don't need this constructor. We don't need to create one of those. We don't really even need class 2. And before anything else, we are going to run this program. Woohoo! Class 1 has Class 2. Yes. Hello, greetings. Okay, this showed up on the other screen. I apologize about that. So it's over here. It says hello world. Yay. That is exactly what we expected to see. We run it, it says hello world. Okay. First things first, let's make our IOC container. So, container. So we'll call it container. And we should be able to get it over here. So let's make a new container. So there is our IOC container. Cool. Done, right? No, just kidding. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. You like the old name? I apologize, Link Slumps. I will consider switching it back to Class 1 later. And by consider that, I mean I won't consider that it's staying with a name like this. Okay. So let's build this the direct way. How would we want to register a type with this? So if I were using a regular IOC container, I would probably say container dot maybe register. Do I register type or do I just register? I'm just going to register. And then I want to pass in a type. And in order to do that, let me go ahead and make those really fast. We'll do our example types. What do we do for our example type? Let's make an interface that we're going to call iConsole. And it is going to have a void writeLine method. Takes in a string text. So we're going super simple here. This is not actually how System Console works. It's far more advanced than that. But this will give us a decent demonstration of it. So we're going to create this as a System Console. So we have System Console, which is an iConsole, and all it does is just wrap around system.console writeLine, and it passes in the text. So congratulations, we now have a wrapper around System Console. And if we jump back over to our program, we no longer have to do this. We can now say iConsole console equals new System Console, and we can say console.writeLine hello from System Console. So we'll do that. And now when I run this code, we get hello from System Console. So essentially I've now wrapped around the System Console there. I started using Azure for some reason. Everyone loved rolling the R. Hello, yeah. Hey, James! 200 for 200. Awesome! Thank you very much for the 200 biddies. And you shared 3 rewards with other people in chat when you did that. Greetings, person from Mesa, Arizona. Good morning. It is... oh, no, Gumshoe. I think you made a mistake there. I just wanted to let you know that temperatures don't get into triple digits. That's not a thing. I think you made a mistake there. Is it 15 degrees Fahrenheit, actually, or 10? Clearly it's not 105. That's just insane. Yeah. Okay, so right now, this is just going and creating it, so that makes an iConsole this. I want to pull this from our container, so let's go ahead and make it work. So first things first, I want to register iConsole, and I want to tell it to use System Console as the type for iConsole. So we're going to put these in here and let it throw not implemented exceptions, and then we'll make it work. So container. That was a good question. Resolve. Do we want to resolve from the container? We could resolve. I like resolve. Resolve. An iConsole. What do people say? He's using the wrong symbol at the end. Link Slumps? What are you talking about? I hope that's not Celsius, because that's even worse. Yes, 105 degrees Celsius would be crazy. Resolve sounds good. Request. Okay. Yeah, if people like Resolve, we'll use that. Yeah, so Celsius and Fahrenheit are better for different things, I would argue. If you're actually going to do science, I would really recommend using Celsius, if only for consistency with other people. But, like, whatever you're used to, they're fine. They both work. Hey, Hadrex. I almost said Hairdrex. Hadrex. I would guess. And I apologize if I pronounce that wrong. If I pronounce anybody's name wrong, let me know. Science, yeah, Kelvin. Fuel Snable, yes. But Kelvin sort of is Celsius. I mean, it's linear. It's linearly related to Celsius. So, yes, they're basically the same thing. Okay, so we're going to resolve an IOC Console. So I want one of this type. So we're going to resolve it to that, and then I'm going to put that code. Did that? No, okay. I don't know why that took a moment there. I don't know what it was doing. Okay. Let's make these. First things, create that method. So we're going to call this... do I want to call it the... I don't want to call it the interface, because it's not an interface. So we'll call this tBase and tImpl, maybe? So the base type and the implementing type. I think that makes sense. And then let's create our resolve method, and then that's just t, because there's only going to be one. Okay. Actually, I should leave that throwing a not implemented exception. Okay. Everything should compile, but now it won't run, because now we're going to throw a bunch of not implemented exceptions, which is fine. Yeah, no, you should not use Kelvin for your general weather. I think you'll confuse people. Okay, so we need to register types, we need to resolve types. So, first off, there's two things here. We can, so I'm going to have us first deal with registering the types, then we can talk about resolving the types. I think it's going to make more sense that way. This pretty much is all the code here, Gumshoe. But yes, I guess I can do a quick, like, read-only live share here. Give me a second. Oh, yeah, I can let you through. Yeah, there's nothing in our container right now. I mean, it's the one we're looking at, but, Mark, make read-only. So sharing read-only, copy link. Yeah, exactly. It's twice as hot as it was yesterday. Doesn't make sense in any system except for Kelvin, potentially. I don't think you should really say that phrase. Alright. You know, man, I debate. I'm going to toss it in the subscriber room first. So if people jump over into the subscriber room, I'm going to at least give subscribers preferential access, because I don't know how many people I've got it limited to. So in case it is limited to a small number of people, it's over in the subscribers room. So if you, well, here, I'll show chat over here. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. If you bring this, if you look, there's a little rooms tab on the top of your chat section here. If you bring that down, you can choose the subscriber room if you're a subscriber. And then I'll post it publicly once subscribers have had a chance to join. So, let's see. Will it support generics? I don't know yet. We're just going to do a simple one to kind of explain how it works. Is basically the idea. So let's get started. So first off, I want to store this somewhere. I'm going to make this, to begin with, a dictionary. We can debate whether or not it should be a dictionary long term. But this is a great starting point for how this is going to work. So this is a type that we're going to put in here. So this would be the so the simplest way, actually, if we want to go super simple, would be to literally just put the base type and then literally the implementation type, and we could make this one work. But I don't think that I want to go this route. If we do, what are we going to end up with? We're going to do... yeah, we'll do this to begin with, and then we'll refactor to a more advanced one. So we're gonna call this types. Actually, no, we're not gonna do it this way. Let's do this instead. So instead of doing a type, let's make this be, well, here, let me just do it like this. New, but it's not going to be one of those, because we're going to change this from type to a function that returns an object. And the reason why, and I'll explain it in a minute, yeah, a function that returns an object. So that's everything that's registered in this. And again, because I use a really big font so you all can see it here, I have to do a lot of line breaks while coding here. Alright, so we're going to do that. Registrations.add, and let's say type of tbase. And then this needs to be some kind of delegates, and what are we going to say for this? We'll say make create instance. Create instance. I think that makes sense. Create instance binder. That must be a thing. Type of t-impl. Now you might be wondering, Brendan, why are you creating this as a function? Why don't you just put the type in there? And the reason is this. I know that we're going to do instance-based ones where we pass in an instance. So instead of passing in two types, we'll pass in the base type and the implement and an actual instance variable, and that's the way that we're likely going to do it. Hey Drex, we're making a simple IOC container to show people how they work and kind of demystify the concept, make it make more sense. So keep in mind, any subscribers, if you do want to actually connect in and see the code as we create it live, there is a link in the subscribers chat here on Twitch, so if you want to join and take a look at that, go ahead. I will soon be making that link available to others as well, so it's, yeah, updated, but it's used right here. Is only update, oh, it's updated but never used. Yeah, we don't ever pull the value out. Okay. So create an instance of a type. That's what gets called by this, and then inside of resolve, we want to say registrations, and we'll do a try get value with a type of t, and we'll call this out out func object. And what do we call it? This is the builder, maybe? The builder? Yeah, it's the builder. So then we say builder. Builder invoke Actually, let's say this. If... Because this will return back a Boolean, so if this worked... So we're going to say, if that worked, then call builder... I'm going to call the method, and this is going to return back a result. So we're going to say return cast as a T the builder. Otherwise, if it didn't work, for now we're going to throw an argument exception. And the argument is it an argument? You know what? I want an actual specific exception for this. So throw new exception. Something's wrong. We'll put a real one in there eventually. Don't worry about that for now. Okay, so that's how that's gonna work. Let's see. Yeah, there's something going on with the bot link slumps. I'm not sure what it is. I'll kill the bot for a second and restart it. I did something. I think I messed up when I was starting it, to be honest. I'll let it go ahead and shut down, and then I'll... Ooh, invalid operation, yeah. We won't worry too much about that, because it doesn't really matter. That is the case we're not really dealing with right now. Okay, so all these pieces work. Our registration is going to throw an exception, because we don't create our instance type correctly. Well, now that I think about it, we don't throw the exception until we try to resolve it, because this just creates it with that. It's not actually called until we call it right here, so when we call builder, it fails. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. Oh, key not found exception. Yeah, that could work. But I'm not sure that I want to do that one. I want a real exception eventually, that the type doesn't exist. I want to tell the person the actual answer. Don't worry too much about that one. Alright, so we want to do this. So we need... so if we get that, we call that... Then this is called... And... Is... So we want to say... type dot... Yeah, there it is. I want to grab all the constructors and grab a single one. I think. You know, here, we'll skip this. We'll do this later. We'll go super simple. We'll handle only the case that we have right now, and we'll add this one in later. Add this once we do nested types. So that's where they actually get kind of magical, is when they do the nested types tricks, which is why I want to make sure we show that. So here's the short answer. Return activator dot create instance. I don't have a type like that, so of the type, and done. Oh, actually I want that there because we're going to use it in a minute. Okay, let's give this a try. So I'm going to add IOC to that string, so now when we run this program we should see hello IOC from System Console, or maybe an exception because I forgot to get rid of something. So here we are, hello IOC from System Console. So, yay! We did it! We have an IOC container. So, how did it work? Well, we create the container, we register types, and we use it like this, and boom, that's an IOC container. Done. It works. We can resolve any type we want out of it. But that's not all that interesting, because, well, I mean, like, we've seen that before. So let's go a little bit more advanced. Let me take a look at chat over here and just see if anything interesting is going on. Yes, exactly, Voight. You need one that takes no arguments. Maybe activator.create. Yeah. Yeah, we're not creating a DevChatter IOC repository here. Definitely not. Don't need that. I'm going to go ahead and restart the bot now. Should have totally shut down now, so we'll see how it goes. Alright, so let's make the more advanced case. So let's say that we have, we'll call it an iBot. Actually, let's just call it an iRepeater. We'll say repeat, void repeat int times. So we're just going to make that stupid simple interface. It really has, I mean, this is just a sample explanation little thing here. So I'm then going to create a class that I'm going to call repeater. And repeater is going to be an iRepeater that we're going to implement. And so boom, there we go, we have that. Actually, let me go ahead and post this link, because I think I've given subscribers long enough if they wanted to join and see the code. Anybody else that wants to check out the code, you can click that link to hop into live share and take a look. Okay, so repeater. It is going. The implementation for this is going to go like this, and it's going to do a console write line. However, you know what we need in order to make that work? We need an IConsole. So we're going to create this. It now has an IConsole, and we're going to say console.writeLine. Hello everyone. I've done this I times previously. Yep, hello everyone, I've done this I times previously. That sounds right. Okay. There's a repeater, there's a system console, there's our iConsole. And then in our program, we are going to register the iConsole type, but then we're also going to register the iRepeater as a repeater. So we're going to ask our container to give us an iRepeater. It's going to be an iRepeater. Repeater. And we are going to say repeater.repeat 10 times. So in theory, it should create that. Now, here's the challenge. This does not work yet, and the reason why is we did single type only. We didn't do anything with the constructors, so it can't resolve the constructor parameters. So it doesn't check those to see, hey, do I have an additional registration that I need to get in order to create this one? To be honest, I don't see anything wrong with passing a factory function to register that would instantiate a type along with isSingleton parameter. Voight, I don't think I need to pass the isSingleton parameter. I'm just going to create it separately. I've got a way that I'm planning on doing it. Oh, did the bot restart again? Yeah, okay. I need to check out what's going on with the bot. It's weird. I don't think I've made any changes to it, so something's going wrong with it. I think it's probably crashing there, Voight. Which I'll have to go check the logs for, but either way it is kind of sort of running, maybe? I don't know. I might kill the bot then for a bit. Did I need to accept those? Yeah, you're both in here. Okay. Alright, so here's what we were going to do. We're going to do this. For now, I'm going to just assume that there is a single constructor. And we'll save our tor equals that, and then we need to take that. What do we do with it? We need to take the constructors. It should have its parameters on there. So get parameters. That give me parameter infos. Okay. But I don't want to store them. I want to just grab their type. Parameter type. That'll do it. So that's the type of the parameter. Should be. So this gets me all the types I need to resolve in order to call this. So this I will probably save. Param types. And once we have that, we need to resolve those. So these will be dependencies will be param types, select, and then we will do parameter types. We're going to say create instance of each one of these. Should work. Type of, no, just pt.type. PT is a type, so just a PT. So we can do that. So select create an instance, that'll get us our dependencies, which this should just take, right? Args, there it is. Yeah, args is the params after that, so dependencies. And I don't even think I need to cast them, because I think it figures that out when it creates an instance of it. Is that gonna do it? I think that might do it. Let's try it. Hang on. Is my stream still up? S&B's saying stream went down. Oh, okay. Sounds good. I was gonna say, I'm not seeing anything on my end that's indicating that it's down, so... Constructor on type repeater not found. What? Hang on, let me try this again. We're going to debug it so I can see where the error is. We'll dig in, see what's going on. Missing method. Yeah, no, if I'm gonna do it that way, let's do this instead. When we resolve, instead of doing that, let's put them together. Let's do this. Instead of calling a create instance, we are going to attempt to resolve them. So there's another way we can do that. So instead of having it be a type like this, we're gonna make we're gonna have this one do it. So this is gonna be type. Yeah, no problem, Gumshoe. So then this one is just gonna call that one. We're gonna call this dot resolve, and we're gonna say type of T. It can't intuit it based on that being a yeah, this one isn't this. That's just an object resolve, and then this one is going to cast T like that. So we're going to call T resolve that, and then this is not, this doesn't cast, this just builds. And this, instead of type of, is just going to pass in the type. So essentially we're going to ask our dictionary, we're going to say, hey, try to get the value using this type as the key. Come back with the method that creates it, and then we're going to use that method and return it. So this is basically saying, hey, dig into the dictionary for us. And then that's how that's going to work. So that means down here when we select, we're going to say PT, and we're going to say resolve PT. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I guess I can just do it that way. So we're going to select, we're going to resolve that type. That should get us our dependencies, which means we're now pulling them out of there. Get constructors, we're saying there should be a single one. Let's go ahead and debug it again anyway and see what happens with this. We might catch that exception. Missing constructor on type console app repeater not found. Why is it saying there isn't a... Let's check out the details of this exception. Constructor... Huh. It should have a constructor. We created one. There's a constructor right there. Well, let's actually debug step into the container here. So we're going to go ahead and drop a breakpoint there and see what constructor we grab. So we're trying to get one for the type repeater. And that should get us a single constructor, right? It says it is a so this is a method. Its name is .ctor. It is a constructor. That is absolutely should work. We attempt to get the parameter types that it requires. The parameter types should be a list that includes iConsole. So this is kind of small, everyone. I apologize about that. Hey, paramedic, welcome. So it says, hey, yeah, we require an iConsole to run, which makes sense. And so then when I step one space further, we should... hang on. Let's go ahead and... So prototype, right now I'm not handling the multiple constructors case. I am just doing the single one. So we go in here, and it doesn't resolve my dependency. Let's do this. Let's actually force it to resolve right there. Yeah, exactly. That's not calling resolve. You're absolutely right. Tinker T, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Much appreciated. Yeah, thanks, Paramedic. Okay, so now it is resolving that one. So it's going to go ahead and try to create a system console, which has no dependencies. So it should just make a new system console. Now we're back in the repeater case, and we have an actual dependency object that is the system console. So now when we call it, okay, that was the problem. It was not resolving. So I just needed to force that to actually resolve with the toArray. So that's all that was going on, was just I needed to make sure that the dependencies resolved before it finished. Without that, it was trying to just delay the resolution of this. And so then it didn't know what the dependencies were. I think it was treating this as like, oh, actually, wait, hang on. Oh! Create instance requires an array, and it was treating it as something else. So yes, that was foolish me. We were calling a different method in activator create instance, and that was why it wasn't working. No big deal. Either way, so quick explanation. Here's what we did. We made it so that when we call actually, let's see it run first, and then we'll walk through it. Run the code. So there we go. Hello everyone, I've done this 0 times previously and 9 times previously on the 10th time. So awesome. So our repeater works, our console works, and it all wires together. So inside of our main program, we create a container, we register our 2 types. The repeater type requires a console in order to work, so hey, cool. And then you run it like this, and then we can call our method. So this resolves the iRepeater type, which when it resolves the iRepeater type, it uses a repeater object, it creates a new one, it passes in the iConsole that it required, and we can actually do it another layer deeper. Fuel Snable, I'm not planning on doing a mocking framework next time, as that one requires a little bit more work. There's also another demystifying thing that people like doing aside from the mocking framework, is doing automated testing frameworks. That's another cool one to see developed in the small scale, just to see how it works. Can I define surly dev? I think I could make a whole video on defining what a delegate is to actually explain that one to people. A delegate in C# is just an encapsulation of functionality. Is the shortest way of saying it. It's just yeah, as Voight says, it's like just a managed function pointer. That's not actually all that wrong. That's a fairly accurate and trolly sort of answer, because it doesn't really help explain. Yeah. What's a delegate? Yes, S&B, that's exactly what he meant. Okay, so, yay, a container. Okay, let's talk about another way that containers sometimes work. So, clearly, this system console object that we've got here, right? We never need more than one of these. This, because it's just calling this static method right here, our system console, we could have a singleton of. We don't need to create multiples of these. There could be one. There's no state on that. So, let's do this. Let's register an iConsole and just tell it, hey, when you get called, let's just do this. Register, register singleton? Or register the actual object. Let's do this. Let's register an instance. So we'll say register, actually, we don't even need to say instance. We'll just give it an instance and we'll know that it is. New system console. So we'll give it an actual instance, because this is another thing that's done in IOC containers. A lot of them can take an actual instance of an object, because sometimes you need an instance of an object to either, you need some kind of complex initialization, or it's needed at startup of your application as well, and so there's no reason to create one other than the one you needed before registering your IOC container. So let's build this. And first off, on our container, let's add 2 things. I did not do this. Tbase, whoops, I meant timple. is dbase. Dbase. There we go. So make sure that this one actually is that one, so that the relationship actually works when registering them. Okay, so we want an overload of the register method. This one that doesn't have t-impl. It just has t. And it's going to take in a t instance. We don't need the where, because we have it right there. And we're going to store it in our dictionary with type t, obviously. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to say, instead of create instance, we are literally just going to put our instance right here. And it is now stored inside of our dictionary. So when you need it, it's right there. It just returns back, you know, that instance every single time. And boom, that should work. So now repeaters get created as you need them, but the console we only have one instance of, and that's going to be the same one. Now, in your case, you might, you know, do that a little bit differently, but there we go. So boom. Actually, let's change up the code just to make sure that we know that it changed. So you know what? Let's change how our repeater works. Let's make it repeat message that number of times. We'll go into our repeater instance and we'll say string, I can type string message that many times. And this will be message. And yes, I understand, it's just example code. No need to worry about that. I can no longer pass in that parameter unless I do like a string format for it. So we're just going to do this. Hello from the Singleton console. Just so that we can see that that is definitely a change. And boom, hello from the Singleton console. So we're definitely doing that, which means that all that is wiring up and registering and resolving the way we expect it to. So that's the neat thing, is that we are grabbing an iRepeater. And remember, on our implementation of repeater, I do want to make this clear. It is also asking for an iConsole, so we are also resolving that type. So that's how an IOC container works. This is literally all it's doing. Yeah, no kidding, S&B. It is actually ready to ship for like the 90% case of what we do with it. The challenge is, the reason we use an IOC container is not for this 90% case that we're handling here. We use an IOC container for those other cases, those more interesting ones, for the fact that it will, you know, it has built-in nice ways of dealing with multiple constructors that you might have. They have nice ways of handling assembly scanning a lot of times that are very effective. So these types of things are really cool. You can build IOC containers like this in any language with really any skill level background, anything like that, and it's not that hard to do. So we basically just tell it, hey, create a new instance calling the constructor of this type and pass in the dependencies. That's literally it. And it just has to keep track of what the types are. So that's, I mean, pretty much we're done. A lot of them have nice other features, like the way that they use, for example, some of them will say, hey, like, you know, register an instance, and they'll do things like container.register, and then they'll pass in the new system console, and then they'll say like as self, and as implementing types, as implemented types, and things like this. And what these are doing is these are saying, hey, take this one that I did and put it in with its own type, and that's put it in with all of its interfaces it implements. So for example, our system console, this would be effectively doing this. If we were to if we were to want it to work both ways, we would say system console, and we would do this. So now it's registered both. So this instance right here is registered both as its interface and as its own type. So no matter how someone calls it, you can resolve it this way. Okay, next cool thing. If we wanted to make this more advanced, some of the things we could do are to look when we're resolving and say, hey, if I don't have a type, you could do something like this. It wasn't in the system. You could say else if the type is not abstract and type do I have it? Yeah, and is not. So basically, if this type is not an abstract and it's not an interface, we could just say, hey, create it, right? Like, and maybe like so we could just say create it, and we could do the same thing. We don't have to create it that way. We could now just call create instance of the type. So we could just say return create instance of the type. We don't need it to actually be registered. We could just say, hey, go ahead and do this one. This is valid. We could just do this. And so now if you call resolve on any type that is an explicit type, so not an interface or anything like that, it's, you know, it's concrete type, it's a class or something like that, it just works. And this will make it. So for example, so that resolved a repeater, right? We have registered iRepeater as a type, but we've not registered repeater. So let's do this. Let's say repeater, repeater2 equals container.resolve repeater. Remember, we have not registered this type. We've only registered the interface. So we registered the interface. So repeater, repeat. This is not registered. We'll do that one 5 times. There we go. So boom, just works. So we can now handle both types that are registered and our own types, and that's pretty easy. So if you've ever seen some IOC containers just out of the box, if you need a literal type, they don't ask you for it. This is basically how they're doing it. They're just saying, oh, hey, that wasn't abstract. It's not an interface. I can make that. So, but if I were to ask it for an interface that wasn't registered, so for example, if we don't register the repeater and it gets to this line, it's going to blow up because that was an interface. So I did a debug so you can see where it's going to fail. And it should have failed right there. It is. Invalid operation, see? Not valid due to the state of the object, because it wasn't abstract and it wasn't an interface. Oh, thank you, ReSharper. The point being, it just kind of works, so it's very cool stuff. It's easy to think something is possible just because it's lacking. If you approach a problem with an open mind and are willing to do the research and testing, exactly, yes, precisely. There are a lot of things that we can do that seem magical, seem mystical, but actually work really well. So this concept of IOC containers that we all use, I'm hoping everybody now realizes that they're not as complicated as you'd think. Literally, this is our entire IOC container right here. And, I mean, a lot of this is just because I had to make these new lines. I mean, that's one line of code, right? This is one line of code, really. Like, not everybody breaks these onto separate lines, right? So if we actually look at this, that is very little code to have an IOC container that handles singletons, you know, adding types that you can just resolve that way, you know, resolving types that weren't even registered in the dependency. So, and that's not to say that we couldn't, you know, spend hours and hours and hours and weeks and months just building this. We're not going to. Second thing, I mentioned this towards the beginning. So we've looked at how an IOC container can be built, and we've shown that it's actually pretty easy, but I want to make sure that I remind you, don't build these. If you want to build, like if you really are an open source person, you want to build something for the community, sure, you could build an IOC container. There are a handful of other ones that are out there. They're great. If you think yours is really better, go ahead. But don't build this for work for a thing like that. Use one of the out-of-the-box ones. It's not worth doing this. You're not going to write one that's all that much better unless, you know, that's all you're building. So there's our IOC container. Okay, let me build this. True, Icy Black Deep, I did not actually go into handling the different constructors. Though we can do that same concept. So, for example, you could in your resolution. Why? Wow. Visual Studio is claiming these files are modified and not letting me get out. You know what? Sorry, everyone that's connected. I'm gonna end the session here and restart Visual Studio because those aren't saving for some reason. So I'm guessing live share was blocking it. Whoops, that's not the project I wanted to open. Hang on. Rip stream. Recent projects and solutions. This one is the one we're working on. There we go. Huh. Yeah, it really didn't take those. Yeah, good old restart. Only Visual Studio. And Twitchloff showing up with a Twitch Prime sub. 9 months! Hype! Yeah, S&B the bot's turned off, so that won't work. I did turn the bot off, but we can spam hype in the chat all the same. Twitchloff, congratulations! Your adolescent Chatosaurus just picked up his grabber. He can now hold objects above his head, including hype signs. So, congratulations. Oh man, Coated Beard with the 12 months. Coated Beard, you get to smile in the chat. Coated Beard gets to smile in the chat. That's what you get with the 1 year resub. 12-month resub. That is awesome. Yeah, oh no. Yeah, Fuel Snavel. Like every device ever requires pointless restarts. Reminds me of our old node modules library. It was haunting us the whole... If we opened the old branch with it, had to close the VS Code and delete the folder. Yes, exactly. Node modules will destroy everything. Yes, Twitchloff, it is our 200th episode of DevChatter. DevChatter 200 indeed. Okay, so next thing that I wanted to talk about, because it's an interesting thing, one of the questions I get asked all the time, it's going to become less relevant right after it becomes a lot more relevant. Let's talk about .NET Core, .NET Framework, and .NET Standard. I've talked about this before, but we're going to talk about it again because I think it's useful to talk about it again. So first off, I have a class library here. It is .NET Standard 2.0. I have a console app here. It is .NET Core 3.0. Don't worry about the fact that it's .NET Core 3.0. That's all I run on my computer anymore. .NET Core 3.0 for the win. Oh yeah, it's great. And then we're going to do one other thing. We're going to add in a new project here, and we're going to call this Console. Console app.NET Framework. 472 is fine. And we'll call this one Console app full framework. Create. Yeah, no, so Coated Beard, no, that's exactly what I was talking about. So that's when it's going to be, so .NET 5 is when this distinction is going to become less relevant. but right before everyone gets switched to .NET 5, it's going to become more relevant. Because right now, if you are on a .NET full framework project, you should be switching as many of your libraries as you can to .NET Standard now, so that over time you can break your dependency on the full framework and do the final switch when you go to .NET 5. So that's why I point out there's an important need for understanding this now, and then as soon as you can, then you can actually make the full switch to .NET 5 and then not worry about it. So it's about to become a lot less relevant, but right before that, you suddenly need to actually know what it is. Okay, so here's what we've got. We have Console App 1, we have essentially Console App 2. So this project is a standard .NET Framework project. This is .NET Framework 4.7.2. This project is .NET Core 3.0, and this project right here is .NET Standard. So versions, don't worry about that necessarily right now. We're going to talk a little bit about what these are. So when I run this console app, essentially what happens is I'm running a .NET Core application. So Console App 1, right here, this one, that is a .NET Core application. It references a .NET Standard class library. When I run this one, this is a .NET Framework application. It can reference .NET Standard as well. So both .NET Core and .NET Standard can run a .NET, so Framework and Core can both run .NET Standard. I can make a class library. Let's take a look inside of New Project screen here. If I say class library, I want you to take a look at which types, back up, class library, which types it offers here. And let me just restrict just to C#. So we have three choices in C#. I can make a class library that's .NET Standard, I can make one that is .NET Framework, or I can make one that is .NET Core. Now you might be wondering, so let me try to explain this. When your code is running, it is never, ever, ever .NET Standard. You do not run .NET Standard. So the way I like to explain it is this. Think of .NET Standard like an interface for the .NET Framework. So you know how you can use interfaces in your code, but at runtime, you don't really, the actual object you're dealing with, while it implements that interface, the .NET Standard interface, it is not actually, at runtime, like an instance of that interface exactly. It's an instance of something that implements that interface. So, for example, in the code we were just writing, our iConsole interface, you have instances of objects that implement the iConsole interface, but you don't really have the iConsole interface objects. They are system console objects, for example. We could also create a fake console for when we're testing, and then that fake console also implements the iConsole interface. So think of .NET Framework as an implementation of .NET Standard, and .NET Core as an implementation of .NET Standard. So they are two implementations of this. So what that means is if you write a bunch of code that depends on an interface, you could use .NET Framework at runtime or .NET Core at runtime, and it doesn't matter. So that's why you'll find a lot of class libraries and dependencies that run .NET Standard. So our class library right here is .NET Standard 2.0. Let me do a quick little move here. I'm going to take these two objects that I put originally in Console App 1, and I'm going to put them in the class library. So let's delete them out of this project. So those will get deleted. So now our console apps literally just have program in them. And let's change the repeater and system console implementations here so that they have the correct namespace now. So that'll be class library 1, and that'll be in class library 1 as well. So now all the code for these are in class library 1. What a great project name. I made it myself. It's awesome. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to take this. We're going to put this code inside of program. So remember, we did all of this code. What? No, not that container. No. Stop it. Reference class library 1. There we go. Okay. So if you take a look at this, I'm switching between the .NET Framework and the .NET Core versions of this code, and they are identical. Just to show you, let's do this. I can make this, we'll say full framework, and this one is .NET Core. And let's do a set startup projects. So I don't know if everyone here has seen this, but in Visual Studio you can actually tell it to have 2 startup projects. So now both of these, whoops, cannot start without debugging. Okay, that's fine. Start? No? Okay. Screw you, Visual Studio. I'm not going to look at what that error is. I'm just going to do what it says and make them just start. I give up. You win, Visual Studio. Wait, hang on. I forgot. Full framework needs a thing. Alright, please ignore the fact that I'm using the standard system console. I don't want to write a new thing into our interface, which I guess I could. So we're going to do a read line at the end of these. And what that is going to do, it's going to prevent the command window from closing. So there's our full framework window. And there's our .NET Core app window. So notice these both ran. These both did the exact same code because they can both run .NET Standard. So that's the neat thing about how this works. Also, welcome, Sourceify. Greetings. So, cool. That is literally what I wanted to show you there, was that you can just do that. Hello, I'll go with Emer. Yes, S&B. And then, no and then. So the, so yeah, if I were to change this from being .NET Standard 2 to, say, being .NET Core App 2.0, and then build, can that actually rebuild? There we go. Okay, so here's the challenge. So I'm no longer, so changing it so it's no longer .NET Standard. Yeah, you're welcome, Emer. So see how it says the .NET Framework 4.7.2 project can't access a .NET Core 2 app. But if we change it to .NET Standard 2.0 and do a rebuild now it'll work again. So hey, everything works. So that is how .NET Standard works. So essentially the idea is, when you're in transition from .NET's full framework to .NET Core, or you're getting ready to move to .NET 5, what I recommend you do is start off by switching your class libraries. If you switch your class libraries to .NET Standard, so you convert these first to .NET Standard, they work just fine with your .NET Full Framework dependencies, your .NET Full Framework executables. So if you have a website or a console application or a WPF app or anything like that that's running, you know, say .NET 4.7.2 or something, right? Like this one is. This is running 4.7.2. You can switch all of your class libraries to .NET Standard. And it's really like attempt to do that. And anything that goes wrong in that is something that you were eventually going to run into when you tried to upgrade to Net 5. So this is your way of starting that process now, and you don't have to change the runtime. So your existing running code can keep working, and it lets you prep for it. So then when you have to switch, that's when it's an easy transition. And yes, as S&B points out, not everything that you use in .NET Full Framework is in .NET Standard. And that's why I point out, by trying to switch your projects to this, you're going to find out which dependencies you have that are requiring .NET Full Framework. So the way of solving that is a bit of a pain in the rear, and I'm not kidding, it really does suck. The way that you solve something like that is in your Net Standard version. If, for example, Console was available in full framework, but it was called something else in Net Core, you literally have to use like preprocessor directives to check to see which version you're in and switch, and it's a real pain. So if you actually are having to build that, it's awful. Let's see, if you recall correctly, Net Framework implements Net Standard. Yes, Emer, that is correct. You can think, so I always like to describe it as, think of Net Standard as an interface, and then .NET Framework and .NET Core as the implementations of the .NET Standard interface. What that means is .NET Core and .NET Full Framework can have things that are not in .NET Standard, because remember, you can always add additional things, more than what is available in an interface, to your implementation. And so that's the idea, is .NET Core and .NET Full Framework have things that are not in .NET Standard, and if you're using those things that are not in the interface, then you're going to run into challenges and need to fix it. Our stream didn't drop, did it? Everybody still there? You still there? People are still chatting, so I'm assuming we're still there. OBS is giving me some weird information right now. Emer, so class library, yes. Okay, cool, thank you. Yes, think of your class, if you have a class library, try to switch it to .NET Standard now. And really, you can go to whatever version you want. Glad that helps make some sense there, Surly Dev. And your app is 472. Yes, exactly. So, yep. You can set up your class libraries as .NET Standard projects and just reference them. So occasionally, so I tell people by default, try to make your class libraries .NET Standard, just because it keeps you a little bit, it limits what you do. So you stick to the most usable stuff. It's kind of like the idea, if you use an interface, you're unlikely to use things that force you to use a specific implementation. For example, a lot of people recommend using like an iList of T instead of using an array or a list, because if you're using an iList, you could receive a list or an array and you don't have to worry about it. You can use either one. But in addition to that, it limits what you use. So you're unlikely to use methods that only exist on one or the other, and thus, you don't really get tied to it. So there's some advantages there. Class libraries can use NuGet packages, if that's what you're asking. Yes, yes, you totally can. You can also build a class library that ends up in a NuGet package and is a Net Standard dependency, and can get used by either Net Core or Net Framework projects. This is the class library wraps the NuGet package. When we run our Net 472, it complains it can't find the NuGet package. You have a class library that's Net Standard, and it's not successfully including the project. Emer, what I would wonder is if you switch the project to Net Full Frame, if you make it a Net Full Framework class library, does NuGet suddenly find it? Because I would wonder if maybe that's a NuGet issue. The class library used to be Net 472. You switched the library to be Net Standard, and the package is being referenced in a Net 472 app. I'm not sure what's going on there. Oh, it's indirect. Is it referenced by a class library that's also net standard? I'm not sure, Emer. It sounds like there's something good. It seems more likely that there's an issue with NuGet package resolution than necessarily with net standard. But it seems weird. I'm not sure on that one. But either way, I wanted to go over that, show it, because it's kind of cool. And in fact, it works beyond that point as well. So, for example, actually, you know what? I can load this one. I have an existing program that does this. So, I'm going to open up the VS 2019 preview because it has better tooling for this. Close all documents. So, some of the cool stuff that we can actually get away with in here is we can actually run, now, this is a Netcore 3 app running a WinExe output that is using the Windows Desktop SDK, because we can actually run .NET Core WPF apps. So that's part of the neat thing. I don't know if I actually mentioned that when I was showing this app previously, but this actually works. So I can run WPF in .NET Core, and it works just fine. And then in my unit test project, you'll notice I did it also as a Netcore 3 app, because remember, unit test projects are also executing, they're also running, so they don't run as .NET Standard. So someone might think of this being, oh, it's just a class library, right? But no, actually unit test projects are executing, they just execute with a different test runner. So they do need an actual implementation to run. So that's why you do build this. Oh, awesome, SNB! Your synthesizer is a Netcore 3 WPF app also. That is really cool. Sourceify, you can run Netcore console apps on Linux, but you can't run a Netcore WPF or WinForms app on Linux yet. I say yet because I'm expecting either the community or Microsoft, someone to step in and essentially build the stuff that would be required for that to work. So we'll see what happens. Is it Emer? I didn't think, WinForms on Linux seems... I didn't think it did work. They said they were not doing it. So maybe someone in the community built one? Yeah, exactly. Avalonia, I'd heard about that one before. Someone had mentioned that one before. That people were making some of those. So, okay, so I thought this was a cool thing because you can actually just run these. And the neat part is, so I have my class libraries right now as Netcore 3. So if I build this, it works fine. And then, like, you can see it builds. But I can actually change this to Net Standard 2. There's no reason for it to be Netcore 3. I just sort of did at one point, because when I switched it to WPF, I was kind of like, yeah, we're definitely not going back to that. We'll go ahead and do this one. Wait, what? Doesn't have to... That looks like something just needs to clean. Yeah, that was... Because I noticed, I'm like, the reference was talking about something in the objects folder, and I was like, that seems like it's just a remnant from a previous one. So yeah, that works just fine. So I can, in fact, run this with Net Standard or Net Core, and it works just fine. So that's kind of what I was trying to point out is, net standard is the thing to use for your libraries usually. Once we get to net 5, so once you're on .NET 5, you will not necessarily have to use net standard if you don't want to, because we're not going to be in that limbo world of 2 parallel versions running. But I would also say there's not necessarily a reason to avoid a net standard version. I don't know what the .NET standard version is going to be called when we're on .NET 5. Maybe it's going to be .NET Standard 5. I don't know. But we'll see how that is. Emer, I've looked at Blazor, but I have not built anything like real in Blazor yet. I do want to do it on stream at some point. We're going to do some Blazor here, don't worry. It is certainly going to happen. However, I don't want to mess with Blazor and actually building a project that we're going to do here on stream yet, only because exactly what S&B just said. Wait for RTM. And the reason why is what we usually do here on the stream is build projects. So most of the time we're working on a project that we want to have like go forward and work on repeatedly. And the problem is right now we are still in a really unstable point in Blazor. So until it settles down and decides exactly how it's going to work, I don't want to have us build too much in it, because we're just going to end up having to redo that effort. If you get to playing with it, see if you can figure out how to change the default port it runs on. Emer, have you asked Ed Charbonneau? Ed, are you in the chat? I don't know, he's sometimes here, he might not be. But if he is, Ed hosts a stream that focuses on Blazor, and he does that on Fridays. So if you want to learn more about Blazor, I would check out his stream. I don't know of anybody else that focuses as much on Blazor as Ed does. So, well, not without my bot running, but let me do this. Let me see if I spelled his name right. Is that clickable? I don't know. That might not be clickable because he's not really in chat. Hang on. Did that actually work? Whoa. That's not working. Nope, that wasn't clickable. Did I spell his name right? Did I get it? Let me check. Yes, I did. Awesome. Hey, his stream is hosting mine. I'm not surprised by that. There you go. There's a link. So Ed does a Blazor stream. It's pretty cool. Okay, a couple of things that I also wanted to talk to people about. So when I was asking people, what should I do for my 200th stream, I figure, hey, we should do something that is different than usual. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was general programming advice, and I wanted to talk to you about something that you've all heard before. So everyone here has probably heard someone at some point say, don't reinvent the wheel. And first off, I agree. Don't reinvent the wheel. That is a bad idea. However, I do want to point out to you, all of you, something that I did here on stream today. I did not reinvent the wheel. Right over here, this is not reinventing the wheel. We made our own IOC container right here. And the reason that this is not reinventing the wheel is the fact that we did not build this to use it. We did not build this as an invention. This is not like, we're not going out there saying, hey, I'm going to build my own IOC container because I want to use this in my project. And this is a key difference. So what is important, and this is one of the concepts that I want to point out to everyone, building a simple version to help you get a better understanding of how it works is a fantastic idea. So I recommend build a simple wheel, don't reinvent the wheel. So easy thing, build a simple wheel. The idea being, hey, I don't really need this wheel. I'm just building this. It's like an educational wheel. So this is a wheel so I can understand how wheels work. I'm not really going to use this. So this IOC container we built, it is just Easy little thing. Hey, Ancient Coder, welcome. Reinventing the wheel is great for learning how a wheel works. Exactly. Yes. So reinvent wheels all the time as a cool way to learn things. So something that if you went through a traditional computer science program or something like that, they probably had you create your own string class, your own linked list class, and all these other various like standard, constructs that exist within every programming language framework that exists. And so you've done these, right? Like I've written a string class before, I've written linked list classes, I've written what in C# would be called a list of a generic list. For example, I've done that in C++, essentially building on much simpler tools, building a more advanced collection type to be used with templates and things like that. Not for anyone to use, because clearly C++ has vectors and C# has the generic list, and all of these things exist. But what's neat about it is I know how it works. Like, I started using C# and like I learn about the list of T, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know how that works. Like, it's going to do this, and it's going to keep track of that, and this is going to be separate. So, for example, I know the concept of, like, yeah, it's going to be a contiguous array of memory stepping, space by space, and it's going to be, like, the objects are going to be the size of the objects and things like that. Now, in C#, it happens that it's always pointers to other objects. So the size of the items in that array are the size of the pointers in the system, which is going to be a 32-bit, pointer in this case. Well, 64-bit pointer, depends on exactly the circumstance. But anyway... The point is, I know how that stuff is going to work. Pretty easy, because I've built that wheel. So, I did not build all the bells and whistles. Notice in our container, I did not handle all the various cases. I did the 90%. I did here's the basic stuff, and I can look up how the other ones work for the more advanced things, but I have a good idea of it. So, I do recommend that. So if you are someone trying to learn concepts, definitely look into that. Take a wheel you don't understand, build your own version of it. And you can actually look around if you want. Like, if you don't know, if you're like, I don't know how this would work at all, go find one, right? Like, you want to know how an IOC container works? Go look up Ninject. You want to see how an IOC container works? Guess what? There's one in .NET Core that is just built in, that just works. And you can just take a look at how they built theirs. Now, theirs is going to be super advanced, so just kind of look at it for, like, some guidance. Don't try to fully understand that one. There's a reason we build the simple one. The advanced wheel in the library is sometimes complicated. And has a lot of, obfuscation and weird abstractions that, are done, for performance reasons or whatever. I've helped others write it, but never wrote one. Was irritated that the teacher failed the kid I helped, because I had him write automated tests. That is awesome, Emer. I mean, no, it's terrible, but awesomely terrible. Let's see. The best thing about learning to do algorithms on your own is that you learn how effective they are and when to use them. That's a very good point. You also learn about the fact that optimizing them as well as they are in the standard library in your language, that those ones are going to be, in a lot of cases, optimized way better than what you were going to do. Now, you can really optimize and make them better, but in a lot of instances, you realize, wow, they put a lot of work into this. Like, they did some really crazy stuff to make that good. It's like, yep, because that's what they did. They were building the one for the language, so they had to build it that way, and they intentionally did, and they usually got support from other people in the community that helped to improve it. That's often the way it works. So Emer, funny story that I want to mention. So I used to do a lot of work with interns that were in computer science programs at universities. And they would work with me as like junior developers at various companies that I've worked for. I'm a big fan of that kind of thing. It's a great way to bring on new developers. So if you've ever had trouble hiring junior developers in your organizations, hire them as interns and part-time developers while they're still in school. Then when they graduate, they know how to do things correctly because you showed them. So, like, whenever people talk to me about, it's so hard to hire junior developers, it's like, well, yeah, it is. Teach them. Like, They're learning computer science concepts in school. You can teach them how to code. So one of the things that was funny about that, Emer, because you talk about trying to help other students and someone failing because you had them write unit tests and things like that. What I tell all the interns that I ever work with is, we're going to teach you how to do things right here. Your professors don't necessarily, like, they might and they might not know how to do things right. They might not understand unit testing. They might not understand that a comment in code should not be explaining what the code does. It should be explaining how it does it, why it does it that way, and information like that. It should not be saying, you know, this, resolve the type, you know, like, creates the instance, you know what I mean? Like, those kinds of comments is like, what? That's what the code said. Like, what? Like, but the trick is, you'll get some professors that want you to do that because, you know, that's how they were taught to code, like, you know, literally decades ago, and they haven't actually, like, because they're in academia, like, they're researching computer science concepts. They're not working as professional developers. So this is not their expertise. Their expertise is not in programming. It's in researching computer science concepts most of the time. So at a reasonable number of computer science programs, you don't want to do this. So, like, I will warn them, like, hey, we're teaching you how to do this right. Do it wrong in your for your teachers. In whatever way they told you to do it wrong, do it the way they told you so that you get your A. Every other bit of code you do it right. So that's the funny thing about it. Joel advocated hiring people straight out of school because that's the only time really good developers are on the job market. Yes, he's absolutely correct. And in fact, I would argue that he's late. He's late to the game. Hiring people straight out of school has you with a limited set of the good developers, because you can hire a lot of good developers before they have finished school. So if you are trying to hire good developers, hire them part-time while they're in school. A lot of developers need a part-time job, and they would rather take a job working as a programmer, as a junior programmer with you, than, say, you know, working whatever generic other job they would have. Like, you know, someone that would otherwise be, you know, working in the local cafe at the university while they're going through their comp sci program would much rather have a programming job. And it also gives you the chance to make sure that they do things right. So they come out of college, you know, following solid unit testing and actually understanding continuous integration, continuous builds, and they probably work in your workflow because you trained them to. So seriously, and then you just, like, as long as you're a reasonable place to work, a lot of times you can convince them to stick around afterwards because, hey, it's a nice spot. We'll get you a job afterwards. You get to keep doing the good stuff you've been doing. And you'll show them that, hey, yeah, you really are a good place to work, and you're a good development team to essentially join. So it's a best way to do things, I think. You're actually thinking about taking a master's degree and trying to get an intern position on the side. That's weird. Do you have an existing degree and working as a professional developer? Why would you take an intern position? Or do you have a degree in something else and you're thinking about switching to programming? Okay. Oh, you finished your bachelor's degree on Thursday. Oh, congratulations, by the way. That is awesome. Well done. The thing I would mention to that would be then, yeah, so go ahead and hop in a time machine and about a year ago, get yourself an internship, and no, I was just kidding. I will tell you, if you are going to go into a master's program, I would actually really recommend that you do get an internship or something along those lines. So if you're gonna complete a bachelor's degree and go directly into a master's program, I highly recommend it. And the reason that I recommend it, I don't know about everywhere, but there are a reasonable number of businesses where having a master's degree is actually going to make it harder for you to find a job, because when you come straight out of academia, the thing that we're all right now talking about as a group is the fact that when you come out of school, you might be good or bad or anything like that, but you don't know much. You're still a junior. That's the way it works. We all start out as a beginner, and right out of school, you're still a beginner. That's like, that's not meant to be mean in any way. Like, I'm a beginner in a lot of things, but that's the state of things. And so the challenge is, someone that comes out with a master's degree, a lot of organizations are just going to assume, oh, this person wants more money, but they're not actually any better at programming yet, because until you actually get, that programming job, you don't know it. You know too much already, it's too late. So what I would recommend is, and circumstances differ, there's benefits going each way, but if you actually just intend to program, I would go get some experience programming, and if you want, head back for the master's, or do it at the same time or something like that. But staying in academia for a long time and then coming out, I know a lot of businesses do not like hiring people with master's degree because that did not work in between, because at that point the master's degree, like, a lot of people are just expecting more money, and the company's like, but you're not any more valuable to us. So depends on what you want to do. If you are going into a field that actually requires a lot of comp sci knowledge, then sure, go for it, dig in, because those jobs do require it first. Yeah, you will hear that a lot. We're not trying to steer you away from it. If you really want to dive into a more advanced computer science topic that requires a master's degree, go ahead and do that, because those jobs will require it. So it's just, if you just want a regular programming job, you will not need it. In fact, the bachelor's degree, a degree in computer science, is not needed to program either. I mean, I was programming long before I had a computer science degree. I think there's value in it still, but you definitely don't need to. Okay. Other things that we want to talk about. Yeah. That would be an interesting one. Let's take a look at our dev streams project. Do. Oh. Where is it? There it is. I honestly don't know if I need a master's degree to learn at this point. I already learned to learn independently during my degree. Yes, that is a very good thing to do. What is your advice to those who are now changing career to dev? So you're thinking people that were in another thing? If you are considering that, I would recommend to make it easier, look at the... Look at boot camps if you really want the drive and want the piece of paper and want the help actually finding that first job. The biggest challenge to someone who is switching their career to software development is finding that first job. Once you have that first one, you actually have experience under your belt, and no one will care whether or not you have a degree or anything like that, and they'll just be like, oh, okay, you have done some of this. So if you are changing your career to development, either, have some connections, show up to user groups, things like that. Make sure there are people that know that you know how to program, because that's the trick. You need people to know that you know how to program. And that could either be that you learn to code through a boot camp or something like that, or it could be, the traditional route is to go through a university, but you can also go through a boot camp. Or you can just learn to code on your own and just prove it to someone that you really can. Who? Surly Dev. I can no longer see your messages because Nightbot nuked them. I wish it didn't delete them the way that it does now, because I can't even see them. It's kind of annoying. I wish I could. So, yeah, I don't know what link, or maybe it wasn't even a link, but anyway. I would recommend anyone thinking swapping to take a beginning course on Udemy first. Yeah, so there are actually a lot of good places to learn programming stuff. You can find videos on YouTube. You can find courses all over, so there are also tutorials you can follow along with, and that'll be very helpful as well. Someone had said, maybe it was Surly Dev, someone was saying that a website was loaded with, like, stolen content. And yes, I have found, like, that some of those sites that just let people post courses, like Udemy and things like that, will end up with a lot of, yeah, like that. I figured some of the courses on Udemy were stolen. Yes, they totally are. That is fairly common. Go to Meetups and Network. Yes, as Desert Griffin just mentioned there, going to meetups will let you actually meet people. So I hired a developer that attended my user group regularly, and so I knew that he knew how to code. He was a person that had switched to coding when he was around 40 years old, and went through a boot camp and had a job that was lame, but he was still attending my user group. And at one point he was like complaining about the job that he had, and I was like, hey, we're like hiring, do you want to do you want to interview with us? And so he came on and interviewed, and it's like, yeah, no, we'll totally, like, absolutely, we'll hire you. We know that you know how to code. And it's one of those, like, yeah, how did he get the job? Well, he attended user groups. I will say there's no guarantee that you're going to find one that way, but that's a way to at least, have some people know that you really do know how to code. So that's the biggest challenge if you are, switching into coding, is making sure someone knows that you know how to code. Go to Meetups and Networks. I'm going to totally butcher that name, but Everlardiez, welcome, thanks for following, much appreciated. And anyone else that's in chat, if you are enjoying our conversation we're having today, be sure to hit that follow button to make sure you get notified when we go live. We actually do, this is our 200th stream of DevChatter, so we've been around for quite a while. Let's see, Desert Griffin, go to Meetups. You have a business degree and went to a boot camp. Yep, see, Desert Griffin, exactly. Senior hiring dev offered me their card and sent in a resume and presentation. You did, yeah, exactly, yes, exactly what Desert Griffin just said. You can totally do that. Devu.com, you have a lifetime membership for. They let you buy individual courses. Udemy is a... If you're considering a Pluralsight subscription, check out user groups. They often give away 1 month free subscriptions for codes. Yes, Surly Dev is correct. So you can get free subscriptions to Pluralsight sometimes. Pluralsight also does free weekends occasionally as well. So every once in a while, their courses will all be free, and you can go check those out. Statistically, the main problem with going into something like a bachelor's degree is that if you're not dedicated or unsure how well you do is coding, is that yes, that is the challenge. If you're not sure, going into a university is an expensive prospect that might not end up yielding a job if you decide you didn't want to go into coding. You're still at your old job, not in dev, and no interview scheduled, so your mileage maybe. There you go, Desert Griffin. Yeah, no, but that's why I say, like, the advice won't work in all circumstances, but that they are things that can help. Lots of people start and drop off after half a year to a year into the study. Yes, there were a lot of people in my first year of computer science that were not there with us when we graduated. That is very common. So something else that we can talk about. So I pulled up the DevStreams project in case our conversation slows down at all. If it does, then we'll be taking a look at some of the patterns and things like that are in our DevStreams project, because I figured that would be a good discussion for us today, is going over some of those things. Be a kind of interesting one. And if anyone came in late, first off, I will mention that all the videos we do here on stream are recorded. You can find them in the video section here on Twitch, or you can find links down below to our YouTube channel, where all of these are recorded and posted for, ever. So Hello, future people on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that like and... No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't usually say that kind of stuff on stream, but I do usually mention to people to click the follow button because, well, I don't care too much about, like I put the videos on YouTube so people can watch them if they want to. Our big thing here is we do mostly live streams of this content, so we want you to show up, join the conversation, hop in the chat. You don't have to join the conversation. You can just sit around and listen to the conversation if you want. Listen and read. It's two things. And you can occasionally participate when we're doing things that have chat interactivity, like when we're working on our Twitch bots and things like that. Lots of people going to non-dev jobs. Yes, that is true, Ancient Coder. A few people that I went to computer science programs with are in IT jobs, do like, systems administration and things like that. I really want to know how to search implementation repository, like... Search a stream by title or author if you don't already have it. Desert Griffin, you mean like just doing like standard search engine style searching? Because if you do, there are a lot of ways that you can do, like you can learn about how search engines work. Essentially, they search indexes. Yes, Coded Beard, yes. So people in IT and systems administration, they do still write code. But they're not usually building quite as many full applications. That's not like their 40-hour-a-week job. That's like, yeah, that is an aspect of their job. So they'll write things like scripts to automate things. Like, I have to set up this thing, so I wrote this script for this. And, hey, we need an application to do this, so they write an application to do that. But they're doing a lot of things that are not software development as well. So IT is a weird spot. You wear a lot of hats. That too. Lots of consultants, systems admins, network admins, stuff like that come out of bachelor's. Yes, exactly. Learning to code is still part of taking the bachelor's degree usually, so not hating it as a yes, precisely. Yep. It definitely helps to get a computer science degree if you don't mind programming. Okay. Speaking of coding, let's take a look at some of the stuff that we have over here in this project. So, actually, do we want to... Coded Beard, you would class it as, you never write features that the business wants, just the ones that they didn't know they needed. Yeah, the IT people, no one requests a feature, for, use by the IT people. The IT people are building, code for the IT people in pretty much all cases. It's rare that that the IT people are building like application level code. All right, so what are some good examples inside of the inside of our projects that we could take a look at? That's true in all fields. Do what's needed and not what senior manager is going to change their mind about next week. Yes. Let's take a look at this. We'll do this one. So we'll dive in. We're going to take a look at a couple of implementations of things. So let's talk design patterns. Why are we talking design patterns? Well, because we've been talking about various stuff today, so design patterns sound fun. Let's take a look at some real design patterns that we're using. Let's pull this up. Base command is an iTwitch command. Okay, 1 second, everyone. 1 second. Okay. Welcome back. So, right here, we have an interface called iTwitch command. And the reason I want to talk about this is I'm going to talk about the strategy or command pattern. This is sort of an implementation of either one. So we talk a lot about these solid principles of object-oriented design. These solid principles are a set of really guidelines that you should not immediately use, but when they become necessary, because you should use them to an extent. So one of those is called the open-closed principle, and that is one of the ones that is both the most valuable and the most dangerous if abused of the solid principles. The open-closed principle states that your code should be open to extension but closed to modification. What that means: if you need to add additional functionality to your program, you should be able to do that with little to no changes to the existing code. So essentially adding new code almost entirely. That's not to say that you aren't going to change that, we're just saying it should not be necessary to do those changes, because sometimes you might also do some refactorings to extract out shared logic between a couple of pieces. So let's take a look. Our code right here, the iTwitch command, it gets called inside of our chatbot. So this is a program right here that connects to Twitch chat. So when this code runs, it connects into Twitch chat and it watches the chat room and it looks for commands. So you might do a help command, for example. Now, this bot's not running, so it doesn't do anything, but that text that I just posted there in the chat is the kind of thing it's looking for. So it's looking for any text that, it's looking for any messages in chat that start with an exclamation point like that, and it's going to consider those to be a command, and it's going to call this code. So we're getting this from a class library called TwitchLib. It wires all that up for us, so it does the actual connection to Twitch, and then we just get the code at this point. So this is our entry point. What we do here is we say, take all the commands in our system, find the first one that, quote, should execute based on the command text that was provided. And then, once you have it, go ahead and execute it. And so that's actually what it does. So this does a cool thing. What this has done is it has established that this collection is all we have to modify in order to add a new command to the system. Now you might be saying, well, okay, yeah, but isn't adding to that collection a change? Yeah, it is, a minimal one. We're not worried about that. A minimal one is you add to a collection. So we add to this collection of iTwitch commands every time we add a new command. So by implementing this, what we're able to do is this necessary? Why was that there? That's totally not necessary. Wonder how long that's been there and I just have not noticed that that was there. Weird. Cool, fixed up the code. Alright, so this is our base command for our application, and it lets us build a new command. So I'm going to build one just so you can see how this works. We don't yet have a help command, so I'll make a help command. Let's do it. So class help command, and the help command is going to be a base command. So notice all I'm doing right now, making new code, open to extension. We have not modified any existing code. This is entirely new code right here. We don't need both of these. We just need We don't need this one. There we go. So the enable check is going to pass in x dot, nope, this is just true. And this one is going to be x dot command words, new that help. So there we go. Yes, dev view should be safe, assuming you went to the correct dev view. Cenobia, yes, thank you very much. I am also excited about a 200th episode. Yeah, it might be, yeah, exactly, it might be because it's rerouting you to another page. Could be something to do with how its SSL is set up. I think I've seen that site before. I think it might be running on Thinkific, if I remember correctly. Okay, so this is a help command. Let's go ahead and make it work. So let's give it a Twitch client. So I Twitch client. So remember, IOC Containers automatically going to wire this up with the dependency that we need. So we're going to call that Twitch client. We're going to store this as a read-only field, and then down here inside of our execute, we're going to go ahead and say send message. Let's see. Specify a command. These are the available commands. These are the available commands. Okay, so command data, channel. So we're going to have it post into the channel when you do this for now. Okay. We're not going to post them just yet, because I don't have them available to run, but we're going to do that. Alright, let's see if it works. So we're adding a new... Oh, whoop, nope, it's not going to work. Remember, open to extension, closed to modification. Let me go make my modification. So we wrote this whole new thing, and then this is all I'm going to do for this piece. I'm just going to say help command. I have to register it, so essentially adding it to that collection. So program is running. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to connect to the chat. So it is this program right here. So there it is. It just said hi in the chat. That's what it is. Now if I say help, it says these are the available commands. So it actually does reply back. So the command's working. It's wired up. And again, we have done one line of code. Again, added one line of code. We didn't change any existing lines even. We added one line of code, and that's the only modification we have made to anything that is existing in this app. Otherwise, this is just its own piece. Surly Dev, stop posting links! Nightbot's gonna kill you! Hang on. Yeah, Nightbot hates links. It just tries to keep them out of the chat so we don't get people like spamming links in here. And I don't have Surly Dev on like the safe to post links in the channel. He didn't actually get, yeah, only timed out for 5 seconds. Yeah, so it doesn't. I just want to make sure you weren't actually timed out there, Surly Dev. Surly Dev, you're untimed out. You can talk again. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't know what. I don't know. The problem is because it deletes it, I can't even see what Surly Dev posted. So I don't even know what it was. So Nightbot's mildly aggressive about that stuff. Anyway, yeah, sorry, Surly Dev. I don't know why it's doing that. It shouldn't be. I don't know what you're posting. Oh, okay, yeah. There you go. Alright, so our help, it sort of works. Let's actually try and wire it up. These are available commands. Command settings. Command settings. So command settings. We're gonna do. How are we gonna make this? Strings. Command name list. Command word. Command words equals. Command settings dot. Do I have an all or something? There isn't an all. There's no all, is there? Ooh, all, wait, all word sets. Hang on, what is this? It's private. Okay. So I want to select, this will be, we'll call this a word set. Word set dot, words dot, words first. We'll two-array this. We'll make that a string array called command words. Oh man, might be too many. We're gonna find out how bad this is. This could be really terrible, actually. String.join. Separated by a comma. Command words. This could be really, really awful. Hang on a second. I'm getting text messages from someone. Just want to make sure that they're not like things I need to do something with right now. Looks like no. We're gonna run this program and see what happens. Let's take a look. So far, literally all I've done, I've added one line of code to our IOC container registration. I've changed one thing from private to public because we needed access to it. And the code is running. Let's have it reconnect to chat. So it's going to do that now. There it is. And then we're going to go ahead and say help again. And it came back with the commands cost, balance, give Gil, i7, menu, name bids, refresh, Cloud Barrett, Tifa Eris, Kate Sith, Sid, Red, Vincent, and Yuffie. That looks correct to me. For example, costs. I can use the balance command. I can use the give Gil command. Which that one's probably going to fail. Yep, see, invalid request because I didn't actually put the whole thing in there. That one will also fail, but it fails silently. Whoa! Error. Yeah. It silently errors. You don't actually see that error there. Oh no, that was the silent error from before, I think. I didn't actually look at which exception that was that we were checking there. So this is an example of the command pattern. Now in my case, I called my commands command, so you can see how they work. But that's how it works. So I noticed a little issue with the display there, which is that I want to have a space, so comma space in my string join. But hey, boom, done. We just built a feature in that amount of time. That was a feature. Actually, let me do that. Rebuild, hang on. Yeah, that doesn't work. You can't give Gil you don't have. Also, I stopped the bot already. So here's our changes. So this is literally adding a help feature. We register that command with the IOC container. So we just said register Twitch command, help command. We made this public so that our code can access to it. This is an unrelated deletion of a line that we're going to commit because it, can be done. And then we created this. So that right there is like all that it takes, and you can build this thing. So it is really freaking cool that you can just add new functionality by doing this. So this is called the command pattern, and it is one of the best ways to implement the open-close principle. Additional ways of using the open-close principle that you use all the time and are absolutely awesome. Parameters and methods are implementations of following the open-close principle, because parameters will allow you to change your functionality. Yes, this is our 200th episode. That's why we're doing a weird one and doing a lot more like chatting about concepts and answering questions. Normally, we write a lot more code on the stream than this. So, that's if you do have questions, make sure to ask them. And thank you. Yes, this is 200 episodes of DevChatter. So, plus reflection for command discovery. Yeah, so Miha's correct. What we could do if we did not want to do the registration like this, what we can actually do is use reflection in C# to find all of the implementations of the iTwitch command interface and just automatically register them by looping over the set, and then you don't need to do the registration like this. So it's actually really easy to do that, and you don't need to go through all this effort. Yes, so if your current project that you're working on is not set up to follow these kinds of things, what you can actually do is start having some of the new functionality wire up this way. So one of the things that I'll do is this. When I am in that transitional state, what I'll do, so let's say, for example, that, so this is the code where it selects the correct command to run. Let's say our previous code before we got to this was some big switch statement. If I could spell switch correctly, right? So we had some switch statement here that, ran based on some value and, has a bunch of cases or something stupid like that, where I'm going to need to dive in and mess with all these pieces. What you can do is the new code you create can be these. And so you just put this before the switch and you say, hey, if I found one, then escape out of here, and if not, then continue down to the old code. So essentially then you make it so all the new stuff can come in using this nice new pattern, and then just over time you can move more things out of the switch statement, and just leave yourself a note or a task or something like that to help migrate them out of there. So if you are trying to improve some of the structures within your code to make this kind of thing a little bit easier, that's one of the steps you can take to do that. Let me make sure I didn't make any changes there. Nope, didn't. Good. Let me commit this real fast. Adding a help command. So that's how you can add a simple little feature like that. So that, is pretty darn cool. Something else that you might have noticed that was going on there I want to show you this because it's kind of neat. So let's throw an exception. Let's put the not implemented exception in here. So, logging command, let's go ahead and toss a breakpoint there. We don't need that one there. All right, so, you wish you had a, yeah. So within a lot of organizations, you can make improvements over time. It's not always easy, but you can. Let me connect the bot. So there it is. And we're going to call the help command. Now remember, we had it throw an exception. So here we are in an exceptional case, and we say the method or operation is not implemented. Now I want to show you a couple of things, because this is our next pattern that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the decorator pattern. And there are multiple ways of implementing what I'm doing right here, but this is one way that I like. There are a lot of ways to do this, though. Okay, so I have caught an exception, and I'm going to log it, and we're going to move on, right? Now, the reason why I do this program is designed to be run while someone has a full screen app running that they need to not stop running. That means the user of this application cannot respond to a window if something crashes. They cannot go and do anything in the app. They're not going to touch the application while they're using it. So they're going to move around to the interface, but once they're using it, they're done, which means we don't want to throw any unhandled exception. So we write out our exception to the logger and just move on. We catch all the exceptions. Okay, here's how we did that. And the reason why it needs an explanation, if you look here in our help command that we wrote, so when we looked at this, there is no try catch block here. I mentioned to you that this code was called. There is no try catch block here. This is called by code that's outside of our control. This is called by the twitchlib library. So we've seen all the code in the stack that is ours. So where did the try catch come from? Well, that's because we did something that I didn't show you yet, so we haven't really looked at all the code that's ours. Let's take a look. So this is my logging command. And the logging command is a special one. It is a logging command of type T. So in our case, we're going to have a logging command of type help command. So essentially what that means is it is going to have a try catch block, call the help command. If anything goes wrong, it's going to log the exception. And you might say, but when did you wire that up? And I'll show you. So this is called the decorator pattern. If you've never seen the decorator pattern before, it's essentially the idea that you have two objects that implement the same interface, two or more objects that implement the same interface, where one of them decorates the other one. So in this case, our logging command decorates all of our other commands, adding in the logging feature to it. Something else that we do, which I will show you, let's take a look at a register Twitch command. You will see that we have logging command right here. So when I create these commands, I'm creating a singleton of the command type. So that's what we're creating each time. And then what I'm actually doing is I'm creating an additional logging command of that type. So the idea here is when we create the collection of commands, we are actually creating a collection of iTwitch commands that have logging commands. So or I should say logging commands that have other commands in them. So our collection is actually a collection of logging commands of the internal type, hilariously enough. It works out pretty well, and essentially means that we get logging without having to do any of the actual exception catching out here. Now, for anything specific to this class, so if I wanted to throw an exception, so first off, I don't want exceptions, really. I don't want to throw them or anything like that. What I want to do is I want to handle the scenarios and send information back to the users, because my users, the people I'm actually responding to, are in the Twitch chat. They're not running this application. So if you type something in chat, throwing an application on my computer doesn't help you find a problem. So throwing an exception doesn't help. That's not what we want to do. We want to handle the errors. The only time we want to get to the exception is if something went wrong, and we need to log that for the developer, for the developer to be able to figure out what went wrong and fix it. We're not handling this for any other case, which means we just mostly need the general logging of let's catch the unhandled exception. Yeah, exactly, Miha. I'm just gonna post the stack trace to Twitch chat. Why didn't I think of that? Let's see. Something going on in chat. I'm a developer on a free hobby fan game project made in Unity, and there's a lot of improvements we have to do. Oh, that actually sounds fun. Unity always adds new and cool stuff from what I've seen. What kind of game? It's a rhythm game. Oh, cool! That sounds fun. I like rhythm games. So the simple case here. One second, everyone. So the simple case here that we're dealing with is essentially what I recommend to most people is start with a simple solution first. So this is what we do in the default case, but we might break this into something more interesting later. But for now, I want to switch on arguments first or default. And there are some cases that we could potentially deal with. So that got the command words. That's interesting. We could actually put all the information here on those. Post that, yeah, so for example, we could offer help on the give gil command, for example. Give gil command, break, and then the default case. Actually, maybe the case is null. Can I do that? Whoops, case null. So essentially there was not a first argument. That would mean that the case was null. And we'll do this. So we send a message there for that one, and then this one, instead of sending out this message, we might send out some help text based on that value. So the give gil help text. So let's just put that in there. We'll run this again, and we should see that just work fine. Now the reason why I suggest you always start with the switch is you don't always know what structure you want. So in this case, it might not be worth it to create like a strategy pattern, which, by the way, if I didn't mention it, the command pattern we were looking at earlier, command is just a specific implementation of the strategy pattern. So it is the idea of injecting in the functionality, or strategy as it's usually called. You inject in the strategy you want to take. So if I just do help, it should list all the commands. If I say help, and I think I need to be case sensitive on this because of the way I wrote it. So help give gil, and then it does the give gil help text. And watch, if I do something else now, help anything doesn't do anything. Because remember, I didn't use the default case. I said there wasn't one. So I said case null. I can also then do default. And in the default case, I could say no help text available. Let's store this as an actual string. Maybe requested help. Requested help. Instead of requested command, we'll say requested help. Help anything? There you go. Yeah, exactly. No help available for Bitcoin. But help give gil works just fine. No help text available for me. Yeah, so we're not actually going to do that. So we'll say no help text available. We'll just do it this way. You can also continue to the default case from the null case if you remove the break. I don't want to continue to the default case from the null case. I have these doing two separate things. Yeah, they're different things. Yep, you are correct. C# does allow fall-throughs on those kinds of things. So if I didn't want to fix the casing problem that we've got here, I could do this. What? Without the typo. Right? I could do this and then it would fall through to the next one, and that would be fine. But instead, I really wanted to just do a case-insensitive check. So for now, it is case-sensitive. This isn't really the version that we're gonna release it with, but that does. Yeah. So Icy Black Deep, I will answer that question because that is actually a fantastic question. So you're saying that it doesn't allow fall through. So let's make that give gil 1, and that's, regular give gil, right? So these are two different things, and it's falling through. Watch how I make it not work anymore. Now it complains. So this is the type of fall through that it does not allow. So this is fall through. So what it doesn't like here is that I've executed code for this one, and then I'm falling through to the next case to execute more. C# does not allow this. What C# does allow is a fall through that has no additional implementation. So this is two cases that will get to the same destination. This is allowed in C#. They just don't want you to have multiple, they don't want you to do some work and then fall through to the next one. So that's the restriction on a C# switch, in case anyone was wondering. Show GoTo some love. Miha, I'm going to pass on showing GoTo love, as that is mildly controversial and I don't want people attacking me on stream, so... Just kidding. Hang on. I'm getting more text messages. Irrelevant. Yeah, now it's probably a good thing that you forgot that goto existed. Gotos potentially are useful in certain cases. There are some instances where a goto is actually nice. They're super rare. If you are writing your own compiler, I'm betting you'll use a goto somewhere. But if you're writing an application, just a business application, like what most developers are writing, don't write gotos. There are better structures. Because the problem is that there are cases where they're useful and nice. The challenge is, unless you know that that's the right spot, there's a very high chance that that's not the right spot for a goto. Yeah, so as Miha points out, one of the problems is that goto can be abused, is the issue, Miha. Because you shouldn't use a goto to handle something that could be handled with a better structure. Like, you shouldn't use a goto where you could have used a while, or a for loop, or a for each loop, for example. Yes, exactly, Icy Black Deep. What a great plan. Goto can be as destructive as it can be nice. Yes, exactly. I love all the fall-through switch statements. I thought it was interesting that ESLint's default doesn't like it for JavaScript. Oh yeah, no, that doesn't surprise me. So the reason why they're so frowned upon is because a fall-through in a switch statement is not always noticed by people, so it can create some issues. Because if you don't notice that it's doing a fall-through and that there wasn't a break, it can cause some problems. So that's some of the reason why some languages are so strict on it, and why a linter would also yell at you about it. It's because it's like, while it works and there can be good reason to do it, there's dangers that people won't notice it. Yes, exactly. Yes. So Miha, that's why I pointed out, like, if you're building your own compiler or making a language or something like that, you're absolutely going to use gotos. Essentially, you're going to use them in code that needs, high performance and things like that, but that's about it. Standard application development, you don't need a goto. Even if it would be useful, just don't do it, because first off, no one's used to seeing them anymore. And additionally, you don't want to use them where it is, better to just use something else. So that's the give Gil help text. So I don't really want to structure this way. So I'm going to pull this switch because I don't want that to be how it works. Let's... I'm just going to discard the changes. There we go. Johnny Sparkles, heyo, welcome. You're cooking dinner, so you were being succinct with your go-to opinion as possible. Very good, Coated Beard, very good. Yes, so in a lot of old programming languages, go-tos were really common. I used to use go-tos back in old programming languages as well. But those languages didn't always have the nice structures we have for flow control that we've got today. So they didn't always have things that were nice, like, try-catch blocks. They didn't always have things like, try-catch finally. They didn't have while loops. They didn't always have for loops. They didn't always have for each loops. They didn't always have do while loops. So a lot of these structures that are available to us today and that work great were not available in a lot of old languages, so goto solved the problem. The challenge is, goto still has its place and has value. That's why it's still in the language. However, any situation where you can use the other ones and it works just as well, like a while loop or a for loop or a for each loop or a try-catch or a try-catch finally or anything like that, where those are valuable, use them. They're better understood, and you're less likely to mess up with those than you are with a goto. So, excuse me. Alright, so we put the help command in here like this. Now, I need to show you all a little bit of the magic, because we have a little bit of refactoring to do to make this work. Yeah, Sparkles, it's because they don't C#. Actually, I wear my glasses because they help me C#. Yeah, that's right, Sparkles. Yep. Welcome to a C# stream. Okay, so, help command, words. Help. Help. And then down here, I want to add in one of these, and I'm going to say help command words. Whoops. Oh, I didn't write it yet. That was my mistake. I didn't write it yet. Derp. Yeah, these are kind of ugly. I haven't gotten rid of them yet. I will eventually. Help command words. Help command words. Help command words. These should be wired up, but I didn't build them that way. Help command words. Help command words. There we go. So now over here, instead of doing new help, I just say x.help command words. There we go. So now that's wired up with a set of those. Throws glasses away. Yeah. Last time I went to the optician, my eyesight improved. That's actually kind of weird. Yes, C# developers. I like C#, but ASP.NET Core with this Entity Framework Core is a little bit too much for me. Zargor.net. I actually am a big fan of ASP.NET Core with EF Core. I think they actually work well together. I would recommend, if you are struggling with dealing with ASP.NET Core and EF Core specifically as a combination, I would look into how to use specifications and generic repositories wired against EF Core. So you want to use, so yes, as SurlyDev is mentioning, with EF you always want to do code first. It tends to give you better results. Though if you have an existing database, there can be a case made for going database first. SurlyDev, you don't like code first? Wrong answer. You don't like code first? But SurlyDev, you can dictate exactly how the database is structured when you start with code first. You can specify exactly what all of the tables, all the columns. If you go with code first, you get full control over the database and full control over the code. If you go database first, you don't get. Yeah, exactly. You want to code first, so you can actually get full control over that. And if you're really worried about it, you can actually not use the entity framework migrations. What you could do instead is use, say, like Fluent Migrator, and then you can literally build the table exactly the way that you want it and have them wired together. You don't need to use entity frameworks migrations for that. Yeah, SurlyDev, you really should. Yeah, it's probably that you don't like the way it migrated, because the migrations in EF Core, while it does do them automatically, there's a lot of configuration that you got to do to make sure that it builds the correct database structure that you want. Exactly, as Johnny Sparkles is mentioning, the metadata is kind of tricky to get right. So that's part of the reason. So we like code first, because then our code doesn't have to bleed around any of the database specific stuff. We can do it the way we want. Many people struggle with ASP after learning some basic C# because there's quite a bit of magic going on. Yes, exactly, Miha. So ASP.NET, as well as a lot of other web frameworks, do a lot of things by convention. So the idea is that a lot of stuff will just wire together automatically based on you matching the existing conventions of the framework. And so that does feel a little bit magical. And that's also some of the reason why at the beginning of this I wanted to do a little bit of the demystifying stuff. So in the beginning of the stream, if you missed it, after the stream, you can go watch the beginning. We built an IOC container at the beginning of this. IOC containers is something that confuses a lot of people. Those are used in ASP.NET Core, for example. You're going to automatically wire one up. It's essentially, there's an IOC container built into ASP.NET that wires up all your dependencies that get passed to either your Razor pages or your controllers, depending on which one you're using. And we explain sort of how that works over there. So when a request comes in to your website, the IOC container is going and grabbing an instance of the controller that it's supposed to get, and it wires it up with all the dependencies, building it exactly that way using the IOC container. That's how ASP.NET works. We showed building one of those at the beginning of the stream to kind of demystify that aspect. Technically, we could do full demystifying conversations about all the various pieces, how all the routing works in ASP.NET and things like that by building simple versions of all of that stuff, and then it would lose some of that like magic feel that it has, because you'd understand how it is wiring all those things together. But yes, totally understand, absolutely confusing and just scary when frameworks just kind of do stuff. But it's getting to the point of having that understanding, and then it just suddenly is not so scary and you can work with it a little bit better. Let's see. I mean, yes, yeah, no, there's merit in both code first and database first. But I recommend code first only because it's a little bit easier to write your code and test with if you have full control of your POCO, if you really can just work with plain old CLR classes. Migrations make life easy. Yes, Ancient Coder, it's good to have, you need to have good migrations. Might mess up my tables if I do something wrong in code. Yeah, so Surly Dev, you're thinking of code first automatically doing migrations. If you control those migrations or are careful with them, it doesn't do anything you don't want it to do because you're controlling the migration. So if you did Fluent Migrator, for example, instead of doing EF Cores migrations, you're probably the type of person that would like that approach better because then you write the migration yourself instead of having it do it. You have a question for us about a project that you need to work on. If it's going to be long-winded, Surly Dev, why don't you ask it over in our Discord instead? You can find a link to our Discord down below. There's a whole bunch of people over there. Johnny Sparkles, I am based in Northeast Ohio, where there are a lot of us. Yeah, Surly Dev, yeah, no, we turned the bot off because it was restarting earlier on the stream. So the bot's actually been off by a while. I can turn it on if you want links to stuff, but there are links down below to the Discord, so you don't have to grab them out of the... I'll start at the bot anyway, but I'm probably going to shut it down again in a minute because it was doing something weird. Yeah, so I'll toss in all the links to various stuff that people might care about real fast. So have some links. So, yeah, Sparkles. As I said, I'm based in Northeast Ohio, so Surly Dev, you might already be in our Discord. I'm not sure. Oh, hey, you're on the other side of, well, I mean, that's pretty cool. I have an Irish name. I mean, that's something. Brendan is certainly an Irish name. Yes, Surly Dev, you might be in it. I don't remember if you're in it or not. I know that you and I are at least in some Discord together, I think. Is it a general question or more of an interview kind of question that the individual is getting an answer on your... Oh, and you work for an American company. Yeah, that's common. I've worked for European companies as well. It happens. So I'm gonna kill the bot just because I'm worried it's gonna just be stupid again. So bot is offline. You're just across the Irish Sea from me then. Oh yeah, we have a lot of so for anyone that's wondering, it's the 200th episode of DevChatter. So I can talk a little bit about the demographics of our community. The largest groups we have, so the largest group on DevChatter is probably the Americans. There are a lot of us, of course, but then again, there are a lot of people in the United States that speak English. So it makes sense. Our next two big groups of people are those we have a lot of people in Germany that watch our stream, and we have a lot of people in the UK and the British Isles in general. So Irish, English, Scottish example, let's see. Another question, why would I want to use a NoSQL database instead of SQL Server? Yeah, see? German. Told you. There are tons of them. Like, even going back to the beginning of the stream when I was looking at the stats of like where everybody was from, it's funny. It's like, yeah, the three standouts: U.S., UK, Germany. So. Oh, hey, see, there you go. So Surly Dev, that is a complicated answer. It depends on the type of data that you're dealing with, for which one you would want to use. What? Hang on one sec. Would you say it's worth pursuing C# as a front-end developer struggling to find work? Depends on what kind of work is in your area. So, if the businesses in your area are hiring for C# developers, sure, learn C#. If the businesses in your area are not using C#, then I might look towards different ones. So find out what is popular where you are. So where I am, there are a lot of C# developers, there are a lot of Ruby developers, there are a reasonable number of Java developers. There are plenty of Python developers, plenty of Node developers. It really depends on where you are. So I'm in an area that has a reasonable amount of tech in general. So I could really choose any stack I want. But I do know in some places C# is not very common. But in some other places it's extremely common. So it really comes down to what's popular among the businesses in your area. That's the best advice I can give you on that one. The next question I would wonder is, most common is Node. Oh, you're in New York City. Yes, exactly. You want to judge based on demand. So if you're in New York City and Node is very popular, but you described yourself as a front-end dev, I would then just say, like, how well do you know your Node? Because if you clearly know JavaScript probably if you're front-end dev, so it's really then just learn to use JavaScript in the back end as well and work with Node, and if you can figure that out, then you could do either. I would really wonder, like, what is causing the struggle for finding a job? Is it that places aren't responding when you apply? Is it that when you interview they aren't hiring you, which could come down to, like, some people don't interview well. For example, like, you'd be a great addition to the team, but, like, they stick you in a room and like, you freeze up or something, or you have difficulty, like, showing people that you are actually a good developer. General, like, getting people to hire you advice. So all of us have gone through interviews where you do the standard, like, phone screen, you do an on-site interview, you do some kind of coding exercise with them, something like that. You can potentially impress people by doing a nice phone interview where you talk to them. You can do a nice, presentation, like, you can, get yourself all niced up, go into an on-site interview, have a good conversation with them, convince them that you're a smart person, and, sit down and program something with them while you're there. Maybe they made you whiteboard, some, object modeling problem that they wanted to talk about or something like that. I mean, I don't like the maybe you can consider any part of that interview to be good or bad, but at the end of the day, did they hire you, and why or why not? So some of the challenges that you can run into, so I would first off argue that one of the best things that you can do is know people. So there are a lot of steps involved in getting hired at a company. One of the first ones is that phone screen. But before the phone screen, before they actually have some kind of phone call with you, they need to decide that they're even going to have that phone call with you. And that's going to come down to your resume. And now you might be thinking Brendan's going to talk about how you design a resume, which I can, but to be honest, that varies so wildly based on who's reading your resume, what they're looking for. Some people like long resumes full of all kinds of buzzwords. Some people like resumes with, like, decades of experience listed. I don't like any of that. If I could get my resume down to a single page, I probably would. I can get my resume down to a single double-sided page by chopping a whole bunch of stuff that's not relevant, and I just put that on there, and I'm like, yeah, there you go. And essentially, I treat my resume as talking points in the interview that we're eventually going to have. But then again, I don't send my resume anywhere. People usually ask me to apply. And now you might be saying, well, how do you get people to ask you to apply? And the short answer is, you need to know people. So, I interviewed at a place recently, and they brought me in because a friend of mine has been trying to convince me for years to go and work there. And he's someone that I've worked with in the past, so he knows that I know how to write code. So that's the way that you usually get So, like, we mentioned a while ago on the stream, when we were talking about hiring junior developers as the way to get good developers on your team, you want to hire beginners, because beginners are on the market, and they don't have a job right now. Okay? Someone that's in college or in a boot camp or something like that, or just coming out of one, those people don't yet have a programming job, so you can hire them. Any other good developer that you're trying to hire, he or she does not, like, they're already employed, right? They probably have a job, or they've had one before and are working on getting the next one. They're sometimes available, right? They might be transitioning. Maybe they just left their last job. They're not on the market all that long because they're going to find another job. Now, the way that you find a job is connections. Let me give you an example. I worked at a company that shut down their entire office so they shut down their Ohio office. The company was based in Europe. They had a location in Ohio, and dozens of people working there, all developers. Well, they in a round of like layoffs that were all over the United States and Europe, tons of layoffs, our entire office got cut. And the funny thing was, first off, and this is not meant as like a brag, this is meant as pointing out the value in knowing people. And I don't mean just general connections of like, yeah, go and mingle and meet people. No, that's not what I mean. I don't mean like the standard like networking, go out drinking with all the random people. I mean like actually sit down, work with, meet, have real conversations with other people in our industry. So when word got out that our office was closing, first off, none of us announced that specifically. We were just told that our office was shut down. And people, a handful of people mentioned online that they were looking for work. And what ended up happening is a bunch of other people then realized, wait a minute, Steve and Brendan are available. So they contacted, essentially multiple software consulting firms contacted me, and if anyone knows Steve Smith, he goes by the name Ardalis all over the place, so you can find him here. So if you follow him on Twitter or anything like that, does a lot of cool stuff. They realized, wait, the office that Steve and Brendan work in just shut down. They're available. So they literally the day that we got let go, like a few hours after we got that information, people are calling me and Steve asking us like, hey, are you on the job market now? And so like they start asking us these questions. So what we ended up doing is, yes, exactly, Surly Dev. Yes, Steve does his weekly dev tips, which people should check out, by the way. It's an awesome thing. Steve's weekly dev tips podcast. So anyway, the point being that what Steve and I did was we talked to owners of consulting firms that we knew, and we actually had them come into the office. We got permission from the company because the office was shut down, right? So it's not being used for anything. We're like, hey, can we have people come in and just like do interviews with people? So literally we had people come on site and like interview our devs like on the spot. And they're like, these are the guys that are already vouched for by Brendan and Steve. Like, yeah, they're good. And basically just blanket offered jobs to the entire company. So like literally within days of being let go, they all have these. And why do they have these jobs? Because they had connections. So did all the devs on our team have connections to these consulting companies? No. They had connections to me and Steve. And Steve and I have additional connections, right? So you don't need to have tons of connections. You need to have a few valuable right connections. And that doesn't mean I talk to the person because they can help me get a job later. No, you work with them, you become friends with them, you establish trust with them. And so that's really what you want to do. So people that you work for, build trust, build relationships, become friends with them. Steve and I are good friends. Like, we've played plenty of games together. I've been to his house plenty of times. He's an awesome guy. For anyone that is wondering, Steve lives that way. So Steve of Weekly Dev Tips, he lives about 5 miles in that direction. So, cool stuff. I want to catch up on chat. But that's what I mean when I say connections. Like, you know people that know people, and that's how you get jobs. So, I think the most common section of JavaScript might be as bad as PHP. You work with TypeScript. Marks Bolt, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Much appreciated. Anybody else that's in chat and hasn't clicked the follow button yet should do so, as that's the best way to get notified when we go live. You work with TypeScript and use a JS compiler, so much easier. You only had one interview, but it was an hour and a half, including a coding exams. Oh, good. Yeah, most non-responses. But I do get interviews that end up with me being told they're looking for more experience and past initial tech screen. Okay. So, yeah, so that does sound like a challenge of getting through the door. So, as I suspected, that is you need to come in on a connection. So you want your resume handed to them because they already know that you know what you're doing. So if you are a junior developer, for example, or even earlier in your career, if you're like just, if you don't have a lot of years of experience under your belt, you definitely want to come in with someone else handing your resume to them if you can. Let's see, straight out of college, and Plastique, welcome, thanks for that follow. If you are going to a coding interview, take code with you. I got one job and they told me no one that interviewed brought code with them. It also helps if you don't interview well, as it gives them something to focus on other than you. Surly Dev, that is actually a very good point, and I would actually recommend that if you do any open source projects on GitHub, add a link to your GitHub, like just the GitHub URL. Like, it isn't not a link because it's resume, but put that on your resume. Let them take a look at your GitHub repo, because if they go and like to your account where they should see commits to a repository and they should see some stuff you work on. So that is another good way to let yourself stand out a little bit. And just bring your GitHub name. Yeah. See that. We agree. That's what you should do. 2 pages, keywords on the first and general experience, and the interests on the last. They learn their skills and company standards as well. That's the hardest to break. Let's. Oh, good. Yeah, you listen to. Okay. KZ. First off, welcome back, KZ. I don't think I've had you talk in here in a while. Do I do any contract? I do contracting mostly. So if anyone in the chat actually is ever interested in hiring me or Steve, for example, we are actually both independent contractors and do work on projects. So we are available for hire if people are ever looking. Ruby, hey, welcome. I just saw you in chat. Greetings. Yes. Yeah, so Steve's episodes are all about a lot of interesting topics. So do check those out. They are worth it. Yes, weeklydevtips.com. Chattosauruses, blah, blah, blah. I appreciate the advice. I'll have to do more to develop local connections. Yes, so make sure you're attending user groups and things like that. That's one of the ways to establish local connections. And I would recommend, especially if you work for a remote company far away, establish remote connections by attending user groups and things like that. That potentially is scary. You can go, if you do have any friends that you can go with, that's another way to make that less scary if going to user groups is something that's worrying. But yes, you want to do that kind of thing. You want to go to events, you want to go to workshops, you want to go to your local conferences, which, yes, I know some of those things are expenses. But those are worth attending because you can actually meet some of the local people. And even if they don't have a job for you, they might also hear about another job that is available and also can potentially vouch for you, because you could be like, because they might say like, oh yeah, well, so-and-so has a job, that job opening. They're looking for a developer for something or other. And then they can even mention you to someone they know at that place. So even if it's not at their company, let's see, CVs and resumes should always raise questions that you want them to ask you at your interview. Yes, Surly Dev is correct. Don't put anything on your resume that you don't want to talk about. Don't put anything on there that you don't want to be a discussion point. Your resume should be limited to just the things that you want to highlight about yourself and talk about in the interview and answer questions about. They're going to have questions about, if they're good at interviewing, they're going to ask you questions about those. They might ask you some other stuff, but they should ask you the things on there because that's the stuff you're saying, hey, I can talk about this. And then that's their chance to talk to you about the things that are on there. And thanks for that follow, by the way. Hopefully we'll see you at some future streams too. You only have one repository on your GitHub at the moment, but that's half a year of hard work. Oh, that's actually awesome. So if you do actually have a lot of stuff in a single repository on there, that works great. You want to make sure that you've got something for them to see on your GitHub if they go there. Otherwise, don't put it on your resume. Do you know of any user groups that stream? Surly Dev, yeah, there are a handful of people that I do know of that stream user groups, which can be fun and a nice way to see some talks about stuff that you otherwise can't get to. But keep in mind that going to a streamed user group will not get you the local connection for that. Hey, welcome, developers, from the CM Griffin raid. I will greet all of you as you arrive. Hey, howdy. I'm assuming a whole bunch of people are stuck in the ad that's got to be running right now, so I'll wait a few minutes to give an introduction. Why would you choose being a contractor or freelancer instead of a stable job at a company? That is actually a fantastic question. Don't interview at any places that use whiteboards. No, whiteboards are fine, just not if the whiteboard's part of the interview. Oh, and Johnny Sparkles, yes, so you can mention other things like that, like gaming. If you're going to an interview, you can absolutely mention hobbies and interests that you've got, because if they do happen to align with the company that you're going to, that's great, and you can immediately have a connection with some of the other employees and your interviewer. That usually doesn't have a strike against you for putting that thing on there, if that's not one of their interests. So feel free to put that kind of stuff on there. Keep it kind of minimal so that it's not like in your face, because otherwise it's like, why are you highlighting your game playing? But there's cool stuff you can see there. Welcome, everyone, raiders. Greetings. I will hype the chat a little bit. Welcome, glad you're all here. Janisku, the bot's turned off right now, sorry. So, yes. Welcome, my name is Brendan. This channel here is DevChatter. We're on our 200th episode of DevChatter, so we're doing a little bit of a weird episode today. I'm doing a lot more talking than I normally do. Most of the time here on our stream, we do live coding on one of our projects. We have a number of projects that we do here. We are building both community sites, so some little bit of web development, web application development, as well as we've done some casual game development here on the stream as well. Nothing actually all that serious. We obviously do Twitch bot integration, so we've done stuff that connects to the Twitch chat, things like that. So lots of fun stuff like that. We like to talk about programming as we do it. I am an object-oriented programmer. And welcome. That is a nice thing. So I take it you're enjoying the stream. So you've now followed and tossed a Twitch Prime sub. So thank you very much for that, Zargornet, which I hope I didn't just butcher that name, but I probably did. Glad you're enjoying the stream. I saw a question in the chat, so I wanted to make sure I got that introduction because there are all the raiders coming in. So here on the DevChatter stream, we do mostly C# and JavaScript development, ASP.NET Core, .NET Core. For our JavaScript code, we usually use Vue.js as our front end, main framework that we work in. We're big fans of Vue.js here. We like it for a handful of reasons. It is fairly lightweight. You can just kind of drop it in, or you can use it for a full SPA framework either way, and it works pretty nicely. It doesn't require a lot of configuration to get it running, though there are a lot of things that you can configure about it. So that's one of the things we like. It's really easy to get started with and use. So big fan of Vue.js here. React and Angular are also both great. So whichever one you want to use works just fine. Let me check a couple of things here, make sure I don't miss everything in chat that's going on. GitHub name, yeah, username instead of a CV. Yeah, you could just link to that. And welcome Ultra Noob Forever. Thanks for that follow, much appreciated. You start your new job on Monday in the UC Sharp. Do you have any good resources to help get you up to speed? City69, there are a lot of fantastic resources depending on exactly where you are in your understanding of C Sharp. The C Sharp documentation and tutorials, the official ones, are actually way better than they were before because they're now like open source, like editable things. So there are tutorials on there and reasonable information about that. The next things I would recommend, you can actually grab some of the sample projects and start working with some of those if you want to start diving right into some C Sharp code. As good places, if you have a Pluralsight account, you can watch some Pluralsight videos on C Sharp. They have some fantastic ones there as well. So it depends on how you learn. If you're looking for projects, there really are some pretty reasonable things like that. There are a million tutorials for whatever type you like. So I can't really send you like a specific recommendation because it comes down to your preferences. But C Sharp has tons of resources. It's a language that's been around for a while. Make sure you look at some of the new ones. C Sharp has a lot of new cool stuff in the language, but again, it depends on what the organization you're going to work for is going to do. I was asking there was a question that I want to get back to, which is why would I choose to be a contractor or a freelancer instead of taking a stable job at a company? There's a lot of reasons for that. So as a freelancer, I can work with a variety of different companies. So a lot of the things that I like doing the most are doing mentoring and training with developers. So for example, if you wanted me to work with your team, the main way that I do that is I step in and I do mentoring and training with all the developers on the team is the thing that I like to do the most, where I sit down and I pair program with all the developers on the team for a short amount of time every week. So I'll spend a little bit of time with everyone to help get them ramped up on the good practices and things like that. So if you want to do you want to improve the architecture, improve clean code, start unit testing, more integration testing, that sort of thing. You want to start rebuilding, refactoring your code to be, better structured, clean architecture, that sort of thing. Then I will step in and help teams do that. And the way that I do that is I help get every developer aligned in doing things the way that the team is trying to. So that is one of the things I really like doing. You can't really do that as a stable employee, as the stable employee, as people say in most places. And then additionally, it gives me a little bit of freedom on my schedule and things like that that I do like. So for example, that's part of the way that I'm able to stream as frequently as I do and in the way that I do. Obviously, I have nothing against taking a regular job. I've worked plenty of them in the past, and I will work them again in the future, just depending on if I get one that I like and want to go do. So that's how it works. Other stuff... Bot's been doing all kinds of stuff. Careful about Stack Overflow, make sure they're extremely professional in everything you've ever posted. Oh yeah, so I can post my Stack Overflow, for example, on my resume, and it actually does have some value in that. And be careful, everyone, about posting links. The Nightbot will strike you down for that. Used in many fields of programming like AI, web development, game development, etc., but I don't know what's optimal. There are so many differences between all the different types of stuff that you'd be interested in. There are becoming a lot more jobs in AI than there were before, specifically in the area of machine learning, if you consider that to be AI. And web development is always very common. Game development can be fun. Depends on where you want to live. So game development is you're more likely to have to go somewhere for that, depending on the kind of place that you want to work. Web developers are hired everywhere. So I was really interested in game development when I was a younger programmer as well. I went and I took the route of, we'll say web programming. Mainly I do business applications, that sort of thing. But that doesn't mean that I have not had the chance to do, again, casual game development here and there, as well as do some stuff with AI in my career. You obviously get the chance to do that kind of stuff still, so pick the one that if you're really passionate about it, go that way. If you're not super passionate about any given one and you actually enjoy them all, choose the one that's going to be the best career path for you would be my advice there. I know people who, if I asked to draw on a whiteboard in an interview, would say something like, will I be writing on a whiteboard every day? So Surly Dev, the short answer would be whiteboarding stuff is totally common in development. In fact, one of the funny things, I was working in an office at one point, and a storm knocked out our power. And it was funny because, hilariously, I'm going to mention Steve again. Steve and I were actually on a whiteboard, like whiteboarding out, like designing what we were going to build. Like we were essentially coming up with the architecture for an application we were building for a client. And it was funny because, like, there was still light coming in through the windows and everything. And so we're like, meh. So we just kept on whiteboarding. And then, like, development team comes over and is like, you know, ask us a question. We're like, hey, we're still working here. Like, we didn't stop. So we thought it was funny because it's like, yeah, we don't need power for the for the whiteboard. So, because we were still whiteboarding stuff, so it was pretty good. But yes, it is correct. The amount of stuff that you should be doing on a whiteboard depends again on the role. So if you are going to be in a role where you're going to be designing the architecture for an application and how you think all these various pieces are going to work together, how they're going to communicate, yeah, you're going to whiteboard that. And you know, in an interview for that, you should be able to do that level of whiteboarding. Like, how are you going to do these pieces of communication? So if that really is part of the job, do it. And allow them, if they don't want to do it in whiteboard, to do it in a program that does the same kind of thing. So if there is an electronic version that you want to do, go for it. That's those are great answers for those kinds of things. And yes, Coded Beard, what you're not going to do is like what Coded Beard mentioned. You're not going to write like linked lists on a whiteboard. That's not a thing that you're going to do in your job, so there's no reason to do it on a whiteboard in the interview. So Coded Beard is absolutely correct. If you're a contractor, you run less risk of getting stuck in a job working with people like me every day for the rest of your life. Merrick Dev, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Much appreciated. And yes, we are all glad we don't have to work with Surly Dev all day long. Yes, so so whiteboarding isn't a problem. It's just there are certain tasks that you're not really going to do in a whiteboard in a job ever. So doing those on a whiteboard doesn't make sense to do in an interview either. Get bachelor's degree, learn algorithms and whiteboarding, make 6 figures. Yes, exactly. That's totally how you do it. Like, I mean, seriously. Just program Minecraft plugins. Yes. So certainly, the funny thing is, my laptop was still running while we were whiteboarding. So laptops do still work. But the funny thing being that our desktops were actually all on batteries. So like my computer setup that I've got right here, I'm on a battery. So if the power goes out, like I still have time to shut everything down and everything because I am running on a battery as well. And so are all the desktops at that company as well. Just the power went out, so they, closed everything down, shut down their computers, and walked over. And, because, like, who knows how long it's going to be out. When the power goes out, the battery's eventually going to die, so you shut it down if you don't have anything, active to do at that point. And I do like for developers, my stance on this one is I like developers to both have desktop computers as well as laptops. Laptops for portability and working on things, and desktops for having, like, a big, beefy machine that you can just, like, build. You could run like 2 instances of Chrome if you've got at least 64 gigs of RAM. So like, and you might even be able to get a Visual Studio running as well as those 2 instances of Chrome. See, I was given a whiteboard test with FizzBuzz for a junior dev job. Thought I nailed it, but ended up getting ghosted. It was fun compared to some of the other types of tests I've had. Yeah, that can be fun. That's kind of a silly one. Whiteboarding that doesn't really have much of a point. I used to draw and implement linked lists during Uber interview. Huh. We had a guy in an interview that refused whiteboard coding. He did the coding on a laptop instead. It worked, but it was perceived as a bit funny. Yeah, Fuel Snail, I can totally understand that. I would be kind of annoyed if someone asked me to write code on a whiteboard too, because I don't write code on a whiteboard. But pseudocode would work too. It's like, but I once drew Google on the whiteboard and wrote the question in the text box that I drew, got offered 3 minutes later, and saw it on Twitter. Shark Deed, yes, that is a fantastic answer to that. Like, how would you do this? I would Google it. So one of the funny things being, I was talking with someone and they asked me some really advanced security question, and I was like, well, I know a little bit about security, but to be honest, if I were ever going to do this, well, I would do two things. First off, I would Google to get a general idea of it after reading some, blog post that explains the basic challenge. And then I would go and find a security person that worked for our company and have them, explain it, potentially implement it. And if they had any concerns about doing that, I would hire an external contractor by contacting, and I then told them, like, one of these people that I'm friends with that knows way more about security than I do, and either ask them, hey, can we get you to work with us, through your employer, or recommend someone that you would say, to do it instead. The idea being, the best answer in a lot of cases is, I'm not the expert in that, but I'm gonna get the expert in that. So, it's one of those funny ones. Yeah, fuel snable. No, absolutely. Having a beefy computer is a really, really good answer to a lot of things. Kind of gave up on trying to have two computers and move between the two. Went to just the laptop. Oh, yeah. Some people don't like the transition between the two. I've never really had a problem with it because everything's in GitHub anyway, so I just pull down the changes and it's like, it's not that bad to maintain two, but I understand some people that don't like it. A particular objection to whiteboards and those particular types of tests being dyslexic and having hundreds of hours being able to write. Oh, yeah, no, Coded Beard. Yeah, that is absolutely a good complaint about those. Sadly, my work provided a computer is very, very slow, not even an SSD. KZ, that's insane! You have a work computer that doesn't even have an SSD in it? Like, no. That's like a 10-year-old problem. Like, 10 years ago, if you'd said to me, you didn't have an SSD, I'd be like, oh, that's a bummer, yeah. But I can understand that. They're kind of expensive, but again, that was 10 years ago. Man, I don't know what I'd do without SSDs. That's crazy. Oh, man. Oh, wow. 42. So one of the things that I try to explain to businesses is if you think about the amount, so thinking about this from a business and an employment perspective, if buying a computer for $1,000 extra gets you extra time out of your developers, it's worth it. Like, spending an extra $1,000 to get a really beefy, nice computer for your developer will save you money in the long run because your developer can get more work done. So, software developers need fast computers. So one of the nice things on if you do have to use a hard drive, make sure it's a fast one, like a 15,000 RPM hard drive or something like that. So if you are going to get stuck with one, at least get one that's quick. And your developers won't hate you. Yes, Miha, that is true. Since you work remote, your RT department is pretty silly most of the time. Wow. Your production Azure environment constantly pops up with low environment. Well, that's a thing. So there is actually one case for giving developers slow machines, and that is if you actually, if the application you're built, if your developers are your primary testers, which some small companies that is just the situation because they can't afford to hire additional people to actually test the application. One of the challenges that developers run into is we build and test all of our applications on big beefy machines, so of course they run well on our machines. Of course they look nice on our machines. The developer has a giant monitor, a fast CPU, tons of memory, like this is just normal for us. And then you put it on, some other person's computer around the company, and the program just comes to a crawl. So that's really the only reason, at which point I would actually argue there are other solutions to that problem. So... I didn't think having a fast computer is about getting more work done, but about not interrupting the flow. Yes, no, Surly Dev. Yeah, no, that's the idea. It's not. It's that every time I have to sit and wait for 30 seconds for it to do something, I have to start my process over again. My first development boss was adamant that we as devs should have the same spec machine as the regular users. Yeah, see, Surly Dev, that's the case that some people make, is that the developer should have the same machine as the regular user so that the application runs the same for them. The problem with that is I would argue that the developer should have that as a testing machine. So if anything, I'd say buy the developer an awesome machine and then also give them a machine to test on. Yes, exactly. See, as what Coated Beard says, make sure that your UAT system is the weakest of the computers. Yep, it should match. It should be the slowest thing that any user is going to use it at. And yes, the IDE is going to nuke all of your resources. You'll have nothing left to actually code with, because the IDE is going to grab 30% of all of your resources, and you won't have anything else to use. So, yep. Nope, totally there. Let's see. These days, devs quit jobs if they don't get sexy hardware. Fuel Snable, they're not wrong. So if you are in a good position where you have an established career and a good network, lots of experience, you have a nice resume, you can afford to go find another job. If your company is, leaving you with crappy hardware or for whatever reason doesn't seem to care about you. So that's one of the nice things that developers can get away with, is we have a reasonable amount of power right now in terms of the job market. Links lumps. It's not just it's I wouldn't say it's millennials. I think it's just a lot of because Gen Xers did the same thing. Job hopping is pretty common. Gen Xers did that, millennials did that, and I'm sure Gen Z is going to be doing the same thing. What do you mean I don't get my sexy hardware? Life Speeding 42, yeah. What if you have to buy your own computer just to have a reasonable machine to write code on? There's a problem there. Anyone who's tried to compile something like Service Fabric knows the normal machines are worthless unless you're paying your devs for drinking coffee. Yeah. So I might have mentioned I have a friend that works for a company that literally he has to have over 100 gigs of memory on his computer just to compile the project he works on, and it still takes a long time. Let's see. So you need $1,000 monitor stand. No, you don't need $1,000. Nobody needs $1,000 monitor stand from Apple. How many years experience do you have? What are your top languages? So I have been programming for for over 20 years now. I learned to code back in the 90s. The first programming languages, so I was doing web development back in the 90s. I was doing HTML and JavaScript and that sort of stuff. I actually liked JavaScript a lot back in the 90s. Around 2000, I stopped liking it because, browsers, and then I did like it again. I used to do a lot of C++ and Python back in the day. I'm a big fan of those languages. I am a C# developer at this point. That is my primary language. I know a crap ton about C# and how it works. I really do like it. I do a lot of JavaScript these days as well because you can't really avoid it. So big fan of those. I've done small amounts of PHP. I've done some Java here and there. I've done some Android development. Let's see, I did VB back in the day because everybody did. I've done a lot of other languages. I've done all the various weird ones like Lisp and Clips and just think down that rabbit hole. Lots of strange languages. And by strange, I just mean not the ones that you run into very frequently. They're the unusual ones, the unique ones. So yep, did a lot of those back in the day. There's a lot of good stuff. So I switched to being a C# primary developer. I was as I said, C++ and Python before switching to C#, and I switched to C#. Would have been around 2006, so 13 years ago. So I've spent about 13 years as a primarily C# developer, and it has been fantastic. Let's see. Established career interns don't accept internships without cool hardware. Coated Beard, you're technically a millennial. Your average job length is 6 years. Wow, Coated Beard, that's actually a very, very good job length. I don't need special good hardware yourself. You do many multi-system architectures these days, so as much core and RAM as possible is a bonus. Yes, exactly, Coated Beard. Zapdos Man, shirt. You like my shirt? Shirt? Thank you, I guess. Appreciate it. 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's not much. How is your SSD feeling? 8 gigabytes of RAM. What? I could care. 8 gigabytes of RAM? Can you even run Windows on 8 gigabytes of RAM? That's crazy. I'm not even sure you could get like Windows and Chrome running at the same time. You'd have to like uninstall Windows just to get a browser running. Oh, 8 is the minimum for Windows? Okay. Yeah, no. It's just kind of funny. It's one of those things of like, it's been a long time since I've had a computer that only had 8 gigs of RAM. That'd be nice. You have a lot of half-gig containers running on it. Yeah, that could work. I hear that Apple... Having 8 gigabytes of RAM... Oh yeah, no. It works fine for having it on a laptop that, like... The challenge is... so, I run Visual Studio, right? Currently, I have 4 instances of Visual Studio running on my computer, including OBS running this stream. And how many instances? I have 3 separate windows, but that's like, I mean, it's probably really only like, I mean, you can think of that as like one Chrome. There are a handful of tabs between them. But like even with 4 instances of Visual Studio running, I have tons of extra memory left over, so you can run a lot of stuff. But again, it's just what are you going to run into? Where are you going to use resources? No Chrome. Yeah, you can't run Chrome on only 8 gigs. And I should mention, I'm not on a laptop. I have a desktop computer over there that I can open up and put stuff in and take stuff out of. You can hardly open Android Studio with 8 gigs. Exactly. It can work. Yeah. So I have Android Studio installed on this computer, so I can run it. It does run, and I have enough memory for it. So I could spin up Rider on here as well. I often have, you'll notice on the stream, I usually have Visual Studio and VS Code both running if I'm working on a project, because I like to jump to VS Code to do any of the JavaScript work, and I like to use Visual Studio for any of the C# work. They each tend to work a little bit better for those scenarios, so that's why I run both programs. But again, VS Code is so lightweight that it doesn't matter at all to have it open as well. But no, unused memory is not bad. Unused memory is great. You want to have as much excess resources. That's one of those concepts. There's a concept called Slack, and that's actually one of the big things that like lean software development, lean manufacturing, agile development, those like these concepts, they're all about having Slack. It is about the idea that you're flowing things through the process, not trying to utilize all of your resources. So like I don't want to have all the developers on my team working, all the time, jam-packed with full schedules, because that means they can't respond to change. They can't respond to things at hand. And by that same token, I don't want to have all of my memory already used up by all my existing programs. I want to have a whole bunch available for, hey, I'm going to spin up this thing. Lots of memory. Just chug it down. Like if you want to open a second instance of Chrome. I dare you to open it on stream. Surlydev, open what on stream? Man, I'm reminded of how much a hog Android Studio is. Open Android Studio on stream. Is that what you're talking about? No, I'm not going to do that. You're going to update Android Studio right now. Thanks for bringing it up. Your gaming rig has 20 gigs on it. Wait, he's using 20? With just Firefox. Coated Beard, you're as bad as Steve. I made a joke on Twitter earlier today about how I think Steve has Chrome tabs that have been open longer than Chrome has existed. I swear he imported them from Netscape Navigator. Was of course my joke there, because he's one of those people that, like, you go over by his computer and you're just like, those tabs are like a pixel wide. Like, how do you click them? So, Fuel Sample, yeah, if you don't use a heavy IDE like Visual Studio, you need a lot less RAM. It really, really is the truth. Like, if you just run VS Code as your primary editor, you need very little RAM. The RAM you're going to need is when building, probably. You have 4 separate processes open with an average of 40 tabs in each. Yeah, Coated Beard, that would do it. You're one of those people. You're one of those people. Not saying that's a problem. It's just funny. When you're like, how many tabs do you have open? This is crazy. So, you have one window just for Blade. That's awesome. You know, Coated Beard, I'm going to tell you about something that's going to just blow your mind. There is this thing called bookmarks. They just got invented like a year ago. And what you can actually do is you can actually save links to those pages without having to have them open in a browser. It's absolutely crazy. I don't know who came up with that idea. It was just like a few weeks ago someone came up with this. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant idea. I don't know where it came from. Truly amazing. I frequently have multiple instances of Firefox developer with multiple tabs in each, and sometimes have Chrome, Edge, IE, Firefox. And yeah, when you're having to do those projects where you're supporting a lot of browsers, it can be a pain in the rear. Having to have them open. I'm assuming that's why Surly Dev has to have all those open. Your main IDEs are every product from JetBrains. So you're a big JetBrains fan. I have Rider installed, and I have obviously ReSharper installed, and Android Studio, if I'm not mistaken, is basically like IntelliJ. I'm the same way when I get unfamiliar territory with 40 plus documentation tabs. Yeah, no. So I do the same thing when I'm actually digging into something. I'll have a whole bunch of tabs for all the stuff related to it that I keep open. Netscape Navigator? Plastique, yeah, Netscape Navigator. That's what I was joking that Steve had all his tabs imported from. Surly, if you're not a web dev, you've opened for different hobbies or pages of different projects that I'm working on? Surly Dev, I'm gonna blow your mind here for a second. You don't need to use, first, I'm guessing Guildarts89, welcome, thanks for that follow, much appreciated. Surly Dev, inside of, Chrome, you might notice something interesting. This is my browser here. Hang on. Let me bring in another one. Actually, let me just do this with it. Yeah, we'll just do this. Okay, so this is the DevChatter stream. So notice these two browser windows here. I want you to notice something. See this little profile icon? This is Brendan, and this is DevChatter. So all of my tabs related to DevChatter stuff are over in a DevChatter browser window. So that is a full separate thing. It had it's a different profile in the browser. So all of my links related to DevChatter stuff are just in this one. So when I'm on stream, I just open up this profile, and I can actually have them both open at the same time. And you can actually make as many profiles as you want. So if you need, 4 different sets of stuff, you can do that. And they're all logged into different accounts. So, if I go to Twitch here, right? This Twitch is logged into the DevChatter account. Right? My other one is logged into my Brendonius account because I use one personal account and I stream on this one, so this is the DevChatter account login. Yes, so other ones have that as well, but my point is not that Chrome has this feature and the others don't. My point is that you don't need to open Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Opera, Safari. You don't need like 8 browsers open to have 8 different profiles when that's really what you want. So yeah, if you use Firefox, one of the answers to that can be, hey, the Michael Jolly and friends, welcome everyone. So what you can actually do is if you, so I would bet that Firefox has profiles as well. You can do the same thing over there, and then they're just separate instances of Firefox. So, and if you have a specific browser for a specific reason, that's something too. Welcome the Michael Jolly and friends. Hopefully you're not all stuck in the ad right now. Hopefully you had a fantastic stream. I didn't catch any of the Michael Jolly stream because I think he was streaming during my stream the whole way. So yeah. Welcome everyone. Glad you're here. And thank you for that follow, by the way. And welcome Raiders. Glad you're all here. Yeah, see, so there are people that like Chrome. There are people that like Firefox containers. What? We're not doing it. We're not running in containers right now. Hey, Robert Tables, welcome. Rambling Geek, glad to see you're all here. Corbob, hey. Firefox profiles used to be terribly painful, like you can't run multiple without launching with flags and such. Oh, hopefully they've gotten that better, because man, that's if I can't have different profiles in my browser, I don't know what I'd do. And yes, so that is actually the joke we've been talking about. Essential. We have been talking about separate profiles and browsers and things like that. But yes, we've been joking about Chrome for a long time. I like Chrome, but man, does that thing eat up RAM. Rambling Geek. I hope you did, if you posted a link. I'm sorry about yells at you about that. But if you posted something that was not a link and you just said ASP.NET or something silly like that, then I apologize. The bot's overzealous. They call profiles containers these days. Oh. Hey, Sourcecoot, thank you very much for the 200 biddies, and yes, 200th stream here. DevChatter has been around for quite a while now, so this is actually our 200th episode. 200 live coding streams that we've done here on various things. Firefox has the best WebGL performance, which makes it the best browser. That is entirely possible. I was so I'm gonna show people how old I am. And the bit wars have begun with Robert Tables. Thank you very much for the 200 biddies as well. we apparently need hype in the chat because the bit war started. Yes, it is our 200th stream, which is quite awesome. And Corbob jumps in with 201 biddies. Not to be outdone by these other people. And yes, we have Chattosauruses fighting now. One to get to the head of the leaderboard. And Rambling Geek with 190. I have no idea why, but hey. And then also shared rewards with 25 other people in chat. Robert Tables, thank you very much for the 1,000 biddies. Here's to 800 more streams. Yeah, I look forward to doing 800 more streams. That'll take me a little while since I do fewer than 200 streams a year. But I have done but again, streams, what? We started DevChatter 16 months ago-ish. So that's not bad, 200 streams. So first off, awesome. Thank you very much, everyone, for cheering, the excitement, the hype. I really do love it. That's part of the reason why I like streaming, is because the awesome community. The shared rewards, Zargor, is the idea that so right now they're doing a thing where when people cheer, it makes various other emotes and things available to other people. So notice that Surly Dev posted that little pride give emote there in the chat. Yeah, see that? See that? Those emotes. So you can sometimes get like bonus emotes. So that's what they're doing right now, is there are all these like pride emotes that you can get when someone else cheers right now. So lots of cool stuff like that. I've gotten lots of bonus emotes from people cheering about stuff when I've been in various channels. So it's a cool thing that they do on Twitch. So whenever there's a thing going on, so right now it's Pride Month, so they're doing them for that. That is a good question, Essential. I'm not sure how long those emotes are gonna last. Some of the other emotes I've gotten in the past, I don't think lasted forever, but did last well beyond the month that I got them in for the event that they were in. So, I don't actually have a good answer for that one. I don't know how long they will be there. Until the end of June. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Rambling Geek. So these ones are only lasting that long. So, yep. So use them while you've got them. Guard Dog Army. Welcome. Thanks for that follow. Much appreciated. Anybody else that's in chat and has not clicked the follow button yet, be sure to do so, as it's the best way to get notified when we go live. I was just sharing monetary love. No idea what the side effects are. Yes, exactly, Robert Tables. You just kind of cheer, and Twitch sort of does things in the background, which is kind of cool. Yes, they do some awesome stuff, and I like the fact that it just triggers whether or not you meant to do it or not. So that is a nice way to do that. And BG Ricky, coming in with your 10-month resub. That is awesome. Welcome. Glad you're here. We need some hype in the chat, because we have subs coming in. Also, I totally forgot to do that when the Raiders got here. I should have responded with our Chatosaurus is fighting, because that's what you do when Raiders get here. You respond with Chatosaurus is fighting, because why wouldn't you? Yes, hype and combat. Okay, so for anyone that is showing up right now, I want to talk about some of the stuff that we did earlier today, and things that we're going to be doing in the future. So in our future streams, I am planning on working on our Dev Streams project again. I did not do that today because today was going to be a special stream, so we didn't do that. So this is our Dev Streams project. I just opened it here in Visual Studio. This is a community project that we're building. We want to build a website that is a nice place to be able to find live coding streams and that sort of thing. So that's what we're building here. We'll be back to that in a future episode. If you are someone that would be interested in taking a look at this project, it is actually out on our GitHub repository at github.com/devchatter. That is this one right here, linked over there in the chat. Essential, thanks for that follow, and Last Member Z, welcome, thanks for that follow as well. So over here you'll find our Dev Streams project, and people are welcome to contribute to this. So if it sounds like an awesome thing to you, if you would be interested in trying to help us get a website where it's easier to find both information about and be able to find streams that you're interested in, specifically about, like mostly development streams, so like live coding and that sort of things and discussions, this is what we are working on right now. We're usually working on some main project on the stream and then have side projects as well. That's generally how DevChatter works. Today, because it was our 200th stream, we decided to do a special one. So I asked people, hey, what would you be interested in? And they said, hey, there were two main things that people thought would be cool. One of them was basically doing a big discussion where we chat about various things. People ask me questions and I talk about it. So we've actually done a lot of that over this stream. By the way, all this is recorded. You can find the episode in the video section. So if you showed up late, you can actually watch from the beginning after the fact. One of the other things that we talked about that people thought would be interesting is demystifying interesting concepts in programming. So we actually started off this stream by not reinventing the wheel, but doing an educational version of an IOC container. So we built our own IOC container at the beginning of this stream, just a simple little one that just does the creation of it based on types. I actually used to do that as part of a software engineering 101 course that we would do for professional developers. So essentially professional developers would show up to a free workshop that we would do, and one of the things we would so this is back when a lot of developers were learning more about automated testing and dependency injection and those sorts of concepts. And one of the things that I would do is I would teach people how to use IOC containers, but before we did that, we would build our own IOC container. So we'd start off the workshop by just building an IOC container. So Hey, cool, we built an IOC container. Then once you do that, you know how they work. Here, we're going to give you one that's better. And then we wire up a real one. So then we would use like structure map and inject or something like that. So awesome stuff. I can talk fast. I can talk fast, and I try to talk clearly even when I talk quickly, so that you can understand what I'm saying. If I ever am going too fast for people to understand, just yell at me and tell me to slow down. Couple of other things that I should mention. So that's what we do. So if you want to see that, you can watch the video of this. All of our videos are actually archived on YouTube as well. What do we want to do? So how long have we been streaming? 3 hours and 50 minutes, yeah. So I want to click a couple of buttons, and I want to make sure that I do this. Hang on. Click that. Is there anybody else? Nope, but it'll be automatic. I don't see anybody that I know. So one thing I do want to mention, so I want to actually call out a couple of people that are really cool that are in the stream here today. So the Michael Jolly stopped by. If you haven't watched the Michael Jolly stream before, I recommend that people check his out. He was in the stream earlier. If you are still here, Michael, then go ahead and talk in the chat so people know who you are, because I do want to mention some things. I want to do a couple of shout-outs. So the Michael Jolly is an awesome chill streamer that I do recommend that you check out his stream. Robert Tables, I saw, is also in here, and I've watched some Robert Tables. So, my bot's turned off. I turned it off a while ago because it was doing stupid stuff. I'll start it again, and then we can actually do those links. Anybody that knows me, I don't just shout out random people all the time. Some streams you go to, they'll basically just shout out anybody that shows up in their stream. So if I actually mention someone, I want it to mean something. It should be that one, I think. Hopefully I spelled that correctly. Yeah, Zargarnet, it's on our to-do list. And so that's why I'm mentioning both the Michael Jolly and Robert Tables here. Both do awesome developer streams. I know on Saturdays Robert does hardware stuff as well. So one of the things that I do want to mention to people is that when I do shout out someone, that really is like my saying, yeah, that's good stuff. I like what they do. I also want to mention that I don't like raid a random channel. I know, like, I do recommend that people make sure they're hosting random channels, but I only raid channels that I know the streamer is doing good content. I've watched the stream before, but I'll take recommendations from people where I will go and like actually take a look at their stream, and that's like my chance to say, like, hey, yeah, is this something that I want to actually, recommend and promote on my stream? Because rating someone really is like a, hey, I really think this is good, you should check this out kind of thing. So I want it to actually mean something. And in addition, when I do raid people, I hope that my channel will at least stick around, say hi, and check out the stream. And so that's why I try to only raid, yeah, exactly. So I will host, anyone else in the community just to provide the support. But like actually sending everyone there, I want that to have meaning. Because the problem is if I just raid anyone, then my community is going to go there and probably not be interested because they're like, oh, we're just raiding a thing? Okay, cool. And it's not going to be like a thing for them. So I want everybody to know, hey, no, I'm really making a recommendation here. So making it a recommendation makes it so that all of you can get the idea that I'm actually saying something about this stream. So that's why I try to do that. And that's why I try to be careful about that kind of thing, because if you just shout it every time, everybody just ignores it. Because if I just shout out every person that shows up, oh yeah, they're great and they're great and they're great, I mean they probably are, but the problem is if I shout everyone out, then you won't go to everyone I shout out. So I can't actually make those recommendations. Yes, professional recommendation from a trusted source. Precisely. Yep. That's not to say that anyone I didn't shout out isn't just as good as someone I did. It's just that I cannot personally vouch for them. And so that's the difference. What you're saying is that you're unlikely to raid. That's true, Surly Dev. I don't know who those two people are. So, yep, accurate. Anyway, So we did some fun stuff today. I am hoping that we're going to be back with some awesome streams in this coming week. We're going to do a handful of things, so I want to continue working on our Dev Streams project, but I'm also going to show you all a little bit more of that WPF app we were building. We worked on it a little bit today, but I didn't actually show all of you what we're doing with it. So it is actually a tie-in to a game specifically for streamers to use, so it's a really cool project. But sadly, we have been streaming for almost 4 hours, so it is time for me to do this. Don't go anywhere just yet, as I do want to make sure that I take a moment to thank everybody today. I want to make sure that I thank all the people that were cheering today. Corbob, Sourcecoot, Robert Tables, James Montenegro, Rambling Geek, thank you very much for those biddies. I want to thank our moderators, Katrina, S&B. Thank you for hanging out and helping out with the stream today. It was really useful to have some people helping out. I want to thank all these wonderful people that followed us today. Fantastic group of individuals who all contributed to and made the chat great. I love all of you hanging out with us. It's really, really fun. And I want to make sure that I thank our subscribers today. We had the Michael Jolly, S&B, Rising Phoenix, Twitchloft, Coated Beard, Zarganet, and BG Ricky. Thank you very much for subscribing today. And the Michael Jolly, thank you for the 200 biddies for our 200th episode. Always appreciated. And a tie-in to a game streamers can use. At first you had my curiosity, now you have my attention. Robert Tables, yes. So it is for people that stream a classic game called Final Fantasy VII. It actually gives the chat full control over the menu colors, the ability to do voting on the names of the characters that they're going to get. And I'm actually building in a system right now that will apply status effects to the characters. So essentially, like, if you want to poison the main character in the game mid-combat, I made that work yesterday. So we are building that. It is a really cool thing. So like people that stream games can do that. And the cool thing is once I build this, I'm actually tempted to build the same kind of thing for other games, because I think it would be a lot of fun to build applications that sort of tie Twitch chat in directly to the game. And it would actually be reasonably possible to build that as actual like overlays, like Twitch extensions. So right now it's all like chat stuff. But again, you could build it as an extension that overlaid on top of it so they could mess with stuff. It'd be really cool, and I think it'd be a lot of fun. Robert Tables, thank you for the 100 more biddies. Hundo for the mods. Yes, we have some awesome mods here. And Sourcecoot, yes, it's an awesome application. It runs really well. It is very cool. So it is absolutely neat to watch the menus just change colors just live as you're doing these things. And actually, I tied it all into bits, so the streamer that's playing the game can actually earn bits from this. So like people would, you know, if you want to change the menu color, for example, they might have that set that you have to, you know, cheer, you know, 25 bits or something like that to change the menu color. That way, you know, like it helps support the streamers that are trying to make that their full-time job, as there are a lot of gaming streamers that want that to be able to be their primary income source. So giving people some kind of reward and a bit of fun tied into that is a really cool thing. And Plastique coming in with the Twitch Prime sub right at the end of the stream. That is hype worthy. Yeah, that won't work right now, S&B. I'd have to reload the page for it because I left the bot off for like an hour, so the window would have given up trying to reconnect. Yes, some hype in the chat, and you can now have Chatosaurus battles all over Twitch. Glad to see everybody's here and enjoying the stream. I am serious, though. I do want to build some of those interactive Twitch applications that tie into games for some other games. We will definitely do that in the future as well, here on the stream, as well as I'll probably be doing some of that on the side. But I love stuff that like ties into chat, like the stream connected stuff. That's why our first project here on DevChatter was actually our chat bot. We did that like, you know, over a year ago is when we started building that. And it's been sitting around getting rusty. So yes, cool episode 200. I thought it was great. I already ran the credits. I'm not going to run them again. So anybody that cheered or subbed after this, thank you again. I apologize you're not getting the second one on a credit roll. But thank you for hanging out today, everyone. Please enjoy the rest of your weekend. Happy coding. Don't do anything crazy. If you're a father and if in your country or wherever you are, you celebrate Father's Day tomorrow, be sure to have a happy Father's Day and spend some nice time with your family. If you're not, then for whatever reason, then have a great Sunday. And hopefully we'll be back to streaming on Monday, and we'll see you then. What time is it? It is 5:30 in the PM, Zarganet. And take care, and I will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.